Zachary Martin is suing his neighbor, Nancy Morrell, for property damage after his car was vandalized.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2151, Martin versus Morrell.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Martin, you and the defendant are neighbors.
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been neighbors?
Moved into the subdivision in 2019.
That's how long you've been there.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know how long the defendant has been there?
I think 2014.
Is that right?
2017, Your Honor.
Oh, okay.
And where do you live in respect to one another? You want to go over there and show me?
I live in this house right here. Or I did. I don't anymore. This house right here. And she lives right here.
You sold your house?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and the defendant
She lives right here.
where the blue car is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. This is sort of a circular area, and from the circular area, you pull into your driveway. Is that right? Okay. It is your claim that the defendant keyed your car.
Yes, ma'am.
And when did this happen?
January 22nd, 2022.
The defendant says that she did not key your car. She has a counterclaim. She claims that she was falsely arrested and held overnight in jail.
That is a lie.
But just a
Okay.
That's her claim, that she was falsely arrested, that she spent a night in jail. She had to hire a lawyer, did hire a lawyer after her lawyer requested several adjournments. You were not, at least physically, in the courtroom at the time of the last adjournment, and the case was dismissed. So let's go back to prior to January 22nd. I assume that if you're alleging that the defendant keyed your car, that you have some negative history with each other.
Yes, ma'am.
Starting when?
There are so many. I mean, it started out when we moved in the subdivision. They were nice at the beginning, no issues. And then the kids started having, her granddaughter lives with her.
Okay, how old is your granddaughter?
She's 9 now. She was 8.
Okay.
They started out having some issues, as kids do. I mean, you know, that happens.
You have a child of a similar age?
Yes, ma'am. She's 11 now. She was 9 or 10 when we lived there.
And the two children had an issue?
I mean, you know, kids argue.
No, I understand that. I'm not going into who was right and who was wrong in the kids' argument. I don't really care. But when did that argument between the two children spill over to the neighbors?
Well, I guess the final straw was Labor Day weekend of 21, the Sunday before the Labor Day. We came home late. It was about 7 o'clock. We were working, and we told Jillian we were going home for a little bit, and she said, I want to swim in the pool. I said, all right.
Jillian is your 10-year-old?
Yes, yes. And of course, she said, well, that's boring, Daddy. I want a friend to swim with me. So I said, okay, one friend. That's it, because your brother's going to watch you, and then we're leaving to go back to work. So she goes next door to Patrick's house, which is the next door neighbor, and she asked Patrick to come over and go swimming. He comes over. At the time, I didn't know this. At the time,
At the time, the defendant's granddaughter was there.
Yes.
At Patrick's house.
yes,
Got it. So your daughter went over and invited Patrick
Right.
to come and swim.
right. And not
You had told her that she could have one friend in the
Right.
pool, so Patrick left to come swimming, leaving your granddaughter alone.
well, she had to go home.
She had to go home.
Yes.
She came home.
Oh,
and-
just a second.
Okay.
That's what happened. Okay, you had a grandchild who had hurt feelings. I assume
She
had
actually
hurt.
went over to go swimming. She thought she was invited too.
You had a
And-
child with hurt feelings.
And I went to ask what had happened.
Okay,
That's this big hoopla.
okay. Now, your grandchild comes home. I assume she was upset. Was she crying?
Yes.
Okay. And that was about what time?
In the evening. I honestly can't remember.
Okay. And when she came home crying, tell me what you did.
Went out and, honey, what's wrong?
What did you do?
Are you okay?
Yes, and she told you what happened.
Said I went over to Jillian's. She invited us swimming. And when I got there, her dad said only one person could swim.
Okay,
So she came home.
okay. And what did you do next?
That's not what happened.
I talked to her, calmed her down, and I went over and said, hey.
You know, just a second. You walked from your house, where the blue car is.
Yep, around the corner.
Did you take your granddaughter with you?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
She's lying.
And what? Shh. If you do that again, I'm
All
just
right.
going to dismiss your case. Do you understand
Yes.
that? And you know, it's
Yeah,
easy.
I got it.
This isn't my case. It's your case.
I know.
So you walked alone to his house. Did you knock at the door? Did you go outside? I want you to tell me exactly what you did.
I don't remember if I went to the front door, if I went to where the pool is, and I do believe Mr. Martin was out there.
Okay, so Mr. Martin was out there, and you said it in that kind of a calm tone?
What happened to my granddaughter? Why is she crying?
Well, she told you why she was crying when she was home. She told you she was crying because she went over there to swim, and Mr. Martin said you can only have one person swim with you.
Which is totally out of character. The children swim together all the time.
You mean at Mr. Martin's
At
pool?
Mr. Martin's pool, and if they need another adult.
Just a second.
I go-
So they swim all the time in Mr. Martin's pool, so you wanted to know what happened on this occasion when he said only one person can swim.
Yes.
And you said it in just the same kind of conversational tone that I'm talking in, is my question.
I was very calm at the beginning, yes.
Oh, okay. And so you said to him what happened, and what did he say to you?
I don't remember exactly. It was to the effect of his son was going to watch them, and he could only have one child in the pool.
Right, that he wanted his son to have responsibility of only watching one other child other than his sister.
Correct.
Right, well, that sounds reasonable.
And that's fine.
Just a second. So how did it escalate? He said, I only wanted one child in here. My son's going to watch the kids. We have to go back to work. And that should have been it. Why wasn't it?
I don't know.
So I walked back out and looked at the Pathfinder, and that's what I discovered, the scratch across the back. Bright white, so that indicates that it's fresh. I told her while she was standing there, you're going to jail. I'm going to call the police.
Okay, now I'd like to see the video.
Zachary Martin claims his neighbor, Nancy Morrell, keyed his car and owes for the repairs. Nancy is countersuing for a false arrest and lawyer fees.
Now let's get to your version of what happened. Okay, so you said only one child. Her granddaughter went home. Her granddaughter, who's a little girl, is upset. Why can't I go swimming too? I got that. And?
This is a lie. Everything she told you was a lie.
Just a second.
She did not come to my house.
Just a second.
She did not come to my house.
If you say again it's a lie, I'm going to dismiss your case. Do you understand
Yes.
that?
Yes.
I asked you what happened.
She did not come to my house.
Okay.
Her daughter came to my house.
Just a second. You mean her granddaughter's mother?
Yes. I never talked to her.
Before my daughter went over, I had gone over.
She did
Oh,
not.
no, just a second. Yeah. Now I don't believe you, Miss Morrell. Now I don't believe you, madam. I watched your eyes. I just watched it. Now uncross your arms. So, her daughter came over first.
No,
Yes.
I
Well,
went
she
over.
never
I don't want to hear you.
She never came over. The daughter came over. She bypassed my front door and went to the side gate where the pool is. She told my son to go get me.
To go get you.
To go get me. I came out and she called me a jerk. You should let her swim in the pool. Blah. I just told my daughter, look, you can have one friend because your brother's watching you. It's not fair for him now to watch 3 kids. Just 2, that's all. I told her, I said, look, I don't know what you're talking about. I said she could have one friend and that's it. She proceeded to call me a jerk. She said some other choice words I'm not going to repeat, in which case I did cuss her out and told her to get off my property and not to come back again, anybody in her family, or I would file trespass charges.
Okay. And that was on the Sunday before Labor Day.
Yes, ma'am.
And when did this incident happen with your car?
January 22nd.
After that incident on Labor Day weekend, did you have any other contact with the defendant?
Yes.
When?
So I think it was right after Jillian's birthday on November the 21st. I think it was like a week, like December the 1st, I think. And this is really sick, but it got to the situation where she would watch my kid. And every time my kid would go to Aubrey's house or Patrick's house, she would take toys, she would unpack her stuff. And I told her, I said, look, you can't play with her. So they would wait 10 or 15 minutes till she got unpacked and get all comfortable, having a good time. She would send her granddaughter over there. She had to pack her stuff up and come home. She would come home crying many times. So then it got to the point where Patrick, he would come over to our house. He'd be over to our house all the time. They would get on trampoline, play video games, blah, blah, blah. So I was doing something one day, and then the camera went off, and I give me a look at my iPad. Here comes Nancy up my driveway. She knocks on the door, and she says, can we play? And I said, no, you can't play. Get off of my property. File trespass charges if you come back. That was, the last time I interacted with her until she keyed the video.
Well, it's not my job to be judgmental in a social way, but I have to tell you, I would have handled it a little differently with her. She wasn't the one who behaved badly. I wouldn't visit her daughter's bad behavior on an 8-year-old. There are kids who live right around the corner from each other, and it seems to me that the bad behavior of a parent or a grandparent shouldn't impact on a child. The granddaughter is a nice little girl.
Well, if you say so. I mean,
Is she?
well, she spread rumors about my daughter and said that, she told Aubrey that my daughter stole some of her toys, and that was a lie.
All right, well, it sort of started to get nasty. Now let's get back to the keying of the car. So that happened in January. So tell me about the January incident.
Okay, so she got up January 22nd. It's a Saturday. She decided to walk her dog. She's walked her dog.
Go over there. Show me what you saw.
Okay. So she decided to walk her dog, and so she walks up the sidewalk.
Well, you didn't see that.
No, not right here.
No, you didn't see that.
When she gets about right here, which is Patrick's house, the mailbox is right here, you can see in the video. That's when the cameras detect motion. That's when I get the alert. So I see her walking the dog, and she's walked her dog past my house many times, but never gotten that close to my vehicle. So immediately I thought something.
Where was your car?
My car is parked right here.
In the driveway?
Yes, ma'am. So she walks the dogs, and she is right beside the view. I mean, you can see in the video, you can see her right hand go up. So I immediately run out of the house. I have a truck parked right here. I looked at my truck. I thought maybe she did something to the truck. I looked at it, didn't see anything. I went back outside, and I said, well, wait a minute, let me go back outside and look at the Pathfinder. So I walked back out and looked at the Pathfinder, and that's what I discovered, the scratch across the back. It's bright white, so that indicates it's fresh. I told her while she was standing there, you're going to jail. I'm going to call the police.
Okay, step back. When you said to her, you're going to jail, I'm going to call the police, did she respond?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, now I'd like to see the video.
Okay. You can see as her hand goes up right there.
I'll take a look at it again. Is there any reason that you stopped behind his car? Is there any reason?
Stopped to sniff, I stopped with him.
You see her right hand right there.
I'm moving my arm as I walk.
Yes, and that's where the scratch is.
Okay, can I take a look at the photographs of the scratch, please? Okay, so based upon what you saw, you called the police. And based upon that, the police came, interviewed you, and viewed this tape.
Actually, I had contacted the police after he had yelled at me. He's a little incorrect. Could I show you where?
Sure.
I did walk my dog around here. His cars impede the sidewalk, so I moved. And I had completed my whole route over to about here, and he did indeed come out and yell at me. I caught a few words of it, said I'm walking my dog, waved my arms, and continued on. That's not the first time he has yelled at me as I've been walking, and I went home and I filed an incident report, and I do have that.
Just a second.
The second time I've been walking and he's come out and yelled at me, it's very unnerving.
That's a lie.
We're very far.
Sorry.
It's going to cost you getting your car fixed. It's something you don't understand.
I have it.
Something you don't understand. I'm allowing both of you to tell me your sides of the story. You can't say that's a lie. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not cutting you off. I let you tell me your story, sir. I let you tell me what happened, and I want to give the defendant the same opportunity. You can't interrupt her. Now you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? I will tell you what I don't understand, Miss Morell. You see, if I had got into a kerfuffle with him, which you had, because he said you and your granddaughter, which I actually think was socially wrong with regard to your granddaughter, but with regard to you, he doesn't want you there, right? I wouldn't walk up a cul-de-sac to go past his house. If it were me, I see plenty of space where you can walk. You can cross the street from your house and walk in the street the other way. And then when you come back, you can walk the other way. You don't have to go inside that cul-de-sac to walk anywhere near his house. That's looking for trouble.
Can I just say something?
About what?
The trend that another gentleman, he tried to accuse of scratching his car.
Are you her husband?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to let you stand up now, and you're going to show me where he accused somebody else of keying his car in the back in January. Show me.
Zachary Martin is accusing his neighbor, Nancy Morell, of keying his car. Nancy is countersuing for a false arrest and lawyer fees.
So you have a counterclaim, and your counterclaim is for false arrest. He didn't arrest you. The police arrested you. And the police arrested you based upon what they believed, after looking at that video, was probable cause that a crime was committed and probable cause to believe you participated in the commission of that crime, which is vandalism. He didn't make a citizen's arrest. The police made an arrest. And not only did they make an arrest, but they were serious enough to have you get a lawyer. Your counsel went in. I assume your new counsel asked for an adjournment. I assume your new counsel, you were there.
I believe so. I was not there, ma'am. I waited out in the hall, and my lawyer represented me.
Fine. So I assume that you knew that your lawyer was going to ask for an adjournment. The lawyer didn't prepare you for trial, did he?
No.
No.
Your Honor.
So he was. I'm not listening to you.
As a witness, can I just say something?
About what?
The trend that another gentleman, he tried to accuse of scratching his car. We have evidence of that.
Just a second. That I'll listen to in a minute.
Okay.
The second time your case was on, did you go into court or did you wait outside?
I waited outside.
Then if you waited outside, you knew again your lawyer was going to ask for an adjournment. The first time the case was on, did you attend the court hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you inside the court?
Yes, ma'am.
She was not there.
She was outside. Yes, ma'am.
The second time when the case was adjourned, were you in court?
Yes, ma'am.
Was she there?
Yes, ma'am.
Outside or inside?
She was outside.
Did her lawyer ask for an adjournment?
Continuance.
A continuance?
Yes, ma'am.
Same thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Did it happen more than twice?
Yes.
On the third time you went to court, did you go to court?
Yes, ma'am.
Was she in court?
Yes, ma'am.
Inside or outside?
She was outside, and what happened, I had sold the house, and we moved an hour away.
Just a second. You were there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, I'm going to let you stand up now, and you're going to show me where he accused somebody else of keying his car in the back in January. Show me. No. Well, this says that on January 18th, which was 4 days before this incident, you reported another vandalism to a Nissan Titan.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the car that you saw her key or believe she keyed?
No, ma'am, that's a different vehicle.
That's what I thought. That's a different vehicle. That has nothing to do with this car.
Well, the gentleman that he accused it of, he didn't even have arrested or didn't want to press charges.
Just a second. Okay, so now I'm going to let you stand up, and I'm going to give you my end of the riot act, because if this is what you're deluding yourself with, I'm going to tell you. He didn't have video of anybody on the 18th around his car. In your wife's case, sir, he had prior experience with her. She had no business walking right in front of the house when there are plenty of other places to walk. If they are not on great terms, he had every right to call the police, show them the video, and they had every right to arrest her. Do you understand that?
I understand that, but
Good.
that doesn't
This has
prove
nothing.
that she scratched the vehicle. That doesn't prove that.
Just a second. That's what a trial is for, sir. That was up to a jury. What your wife is suing him for is for false arrest. He didn't arrest her. The police arrested her. Now sit. May I see the invoice? Have you had the car
Yes,
fixed?
ma'am, I have an estimate, and I also have the police report. Where
I'd like to
read
see
her own
both.
words.
I'd like to see both. So the police officer indicated that after you were told about what the officer saw on the video, you've decided to make no more statements about the incident, and you were placed under arrest for malicious damage. The officer also reported that the scratch on the back of the car was fresh because there were fresh paint chips on the street that were red paint chips. There's a red car that came off that car, which demonstrates to the eyes of any layperson that since there's traffic back and forth there, if there are fresh scratches and fresh paint, it means it just happened. So your counterclaim for false arrest and anything addended thereto is dismissed.
I did not do it, Your Honor.
Right, well, okay, maybe. The case was dismissed. That doesn't mean you're entitled to money from him. Police had probable cause to believe that a crime was committed and probable cause to believe that you committed that crime. The rest of it is up to a jury. So you have a beef with the police department, not with him. They had an absolute right to arrest you. I'm not giving you $2,500 for this scratch, sir. Get it out of your mind. Do you understand?
Why not?
It's not a $2,500 scratch.
I mean, that's an estimate from a body shop.
$500. Judgment for the plaintiff. We're done.
This court is adjourned.
Well, she was incorrect because I did not do it.
You know, we took an oath when we went inside to tell the truth, and she lied repeatedly, and she got mad at me when I said that's a lie, but it was a lie.
That he saw me walking by and looked at the car and said, oh.
The next day I called the police to see what happened, and they informed me they arrested her.
I thought they were there because I had called about him harassing me, and then all of a sudden they just said, you scratched his car. And I said, no, I didn't.
I think she should have stayed in jail longer.
They placed me in custody.
The lady does nothing but lie. She's a liar.
It was horrible.
I actually thought his behavior when the defendant brought her granddaughter over subsequently and said, can't she play? Because evidently there are 2 or 3 kids who live close by and they always played together. All of a sudden, the granddaughter is excluded from that play. There's a certain amount, as a parent, he should have had some sense of that and said, well, of course they can play, but your daughter owes me an apology. You know, if you're behaving like an adult, your daughter owes me an apology. I tried to do a responsible thing. I didn't want to let my son watch more than one stranger child in a pool, which is absolutely smart because, God forbid, something happened to one of those children, they would certainly turn around and sue him.
Yeah.
So he did the responsible thing. Was it hurtful to the other child? Yes. According to him, his daughter was playing at Patrick's house. She came over and said, you can't come, because they're little children. They don't understand. You can't come. Only one person can come. But you're a grown-up. So understand how that could be hurtful to an 8-year-old. Anyway, I think that they both behaved badly, and he's very smart to have moved out of that.
Out of the cul-de-sac, out of the neighborhood.
Yeah, could you understand why she would walk her dog there?
Yeah, I agreed with you that if you've already had even just a hint of distaste with any of your neighbors, I just walk on the other side of the street, just avoid it. And this seems like a perfectly avoidable house in the cul-de-sac.
You actually have to
go into his loop in order to make the loop. So I don't know. I think both sides questionable, but I'm glad that he got something that you were willing to give him for his car.
Yeah, get your car fixed reasonably, and the police absolutely had a right to arrest her.
Yeah.
There was a complaint. They looked at the complaint. They saw the damage. They saw it was fresh. They saw her right there on the video. They had a history of bad feelings between them. They had an absolute right to arrest her.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Suing his neighbor, Stacy Benedum, for breach of contract and attorney fees.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case 2128, Hall versus Benedum.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hall, you and the defendant are neighbors,
Yes, ma'am.
and your houses are right next to each other.
Hers is on the corner, and mine is
Right next to her.
Yes.
Got it. What your complaint is that I see where those 2, the truck and the vehicle behind it,
The trailer, yes, ma'am.
the trailer. The property to the left of that is your house,
Yes, ma'am.
and the property to the right of that is the defendant's house.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that the defendant, in writing, agreed to sell you that little piece of property that looks like it's been carved out of her property.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you had a narrow driveway, you wanted to park these 2 vehicles.
Yes, ma'am.
Based upon that agreement, you went ahead and did some work on that piece of property.
Yes, ma'am.
You put down gravel, you planted flowers, all to make it look as if that piece of property was part of your house.
Not so much to make it look like it's part of my house so I can get in it, because the agreement was that there was 3 pine trees there prior to her telling me that I can buy the property.
No. The 3 trees that are there had nothing to do with this except that they were taken down. And were they taken down and the removal of the trees was paid for by you or by her?
By both of us.
By both. Okay. So you asked to have the trees removed, and you both paid to have the trees removed.
Okay.
Not only did you cut the trees down, but you took that property and made it look like yours. You say that there was an agreement in writing for her to sell you that piece of property. So I'd like to see that agreement.
Yes, ma'am.
There's no agreement in writing.
Don't say anything.
The very top line.
Just a second. This is not a contract, sir, to sell land.
I have a lot more.
Shh. Not a contract to sell land. I see what she says to you. I am agreeing to sell you the property you are currently parked on for $1,000 plus costs. Let's get this in motion ASAP. And then she doesn't hear from you, and that's the 18th of May. And then she writes you again a little bit later, and she says her offer will expire at the end of today's business day, 5/19. And on 5/19, at 10 o'clock at night, you write to her, "Hey, Stacy, I've started working on things this morning. I have already been to the city of Akron, and once they are done and I get a surveyor and so on, I will keep you updated if that's okay. Last, everything is time sensitive, and I'm working as fast as I can to get the approvals. Just now seeing your texts."
Right.
Okay. So that's
day.
what you're relying on as a contract to purchase property.
Well, the fact that she said that she would sell it to me, and I started all the motion like she said to do. I started all the motions, got the surveyor done, got the deeds done, I got everything done.
All right. That was 5/19/2021. So show me what you did based on this and what you spent based on your belief that she had agreed to sell you the property and you had an agreement for sale, which is like a contract to sale of property. Most people know that when you sell a piece of property, you get a survey, you put it in the contract, you have a contract when the property is going to be transferred. That property would have to be surveyed because clearly you're carving a piece of property out of her property. I want to see what you did and what you spent, because if you spent money based on this, I may consider that as part of your lawsuit, because then it turned out she didn't want to sell you the property. By the way, I wouldn't sell them the property either. It makes your property look ridiculous.
It does. We never agreed to sell the property. Okay.
Did you write, "I am agreeing to sell you the property you are currently parked on for $1,000 plus costs"?
Yes, I never agreed to sell the property until I told him he was no longer allowed to park there. It was never discussed.
What is this?
Depending on the stipulation that my mortgage company requires, which is an appraisal, they had to approve the selling of the property.
All I'm interested in is this one line. The other ifs fall after that. It says, "I'm agreeing to sell you the property you are currently parked on for $1,000 plus costs."
Yes.
Okay, so you did that.
Yes.
I want to see the things that you started to do right after May 19th. You said, "I've already started working on things this morning." This is May 19th. "I've already been to the city of Akron."
Yes. This is a receipt showing the $800 from the surveyor.
Okay, may I see that, please?
There's that one. This is a receipt from the attorney where I had the deed paperwork done.
I'm looking for a date on this, sir. I'm looking for dates on these things.
Look at this one, too.
Okay, June 15th. What is this?
That's actually when I paid to have the 3 deeds made up. That's the $450 that I had to pay to the attorney for him to make the 3 deeds up. And everything Stacey had to do was sign them.
And that was June 15th. That was not quite a month later.
Right. I started the next day.
Okay. And this is so far what you spent in reliance on her statement that "I'll sell you the property for $1,000.
This is a breakdown that I have, that I wrote down, that you can show her that, of everything, the timeline and...
Now, I don't need a breakdown of the timeline, sir. I need the bills for this, not what you wrote.
Okay.
I need the bills for 6 tons of gravel. That was in July.
Here's one receipt right here. There you go.
Did he ever give you $1,000?
He never paid me.
I'm a common sense person and a property owner. It was overreaching to think that you could buy a piece of that land for $1,000. Overreaching.
Julian Hall claims his neighbor, Stacy Benedum, owes for building costs and attorney fees. Stacy is countersuing, claiming Julian was illegally parking on her property.
Okay, so far all I have that you paid was $450 for the deeds, $800 for the survey, and gravel to be delivered.
I got the gravel in there. I also have the concrete that I had laid, flowers and stuff that I put in.
Did he pay part of having the tree stumps removed?
We split the cost and the labor of removing the debris of the trees.
No, ma'am, that's not true.
Who wanted the trees removed?
I never had a problem with the trees. I like the trees.
Don't speak.
He wanted the trees cut down so he could have more space. He was already parking underneath the trees with a smaller trailer, just not his truck. He wanted more space, so he came to me and said, hey, what if I split the cost of the cutting of the trees? I said, that's fine, I'll split the cost, that's fine with me. And then I agreed to let him continue to park there as long as there was no tire marks. That's what it was. And then he built this thing.
Well, he formalized parking there. Mm-hmm. Okay. At what point did Miss Benedum tell you that she was not going to sell you the property?
This actually started on 4/3 of 18.
I'm not interested. I'm interested in the beginning of these texts, where you clearly had discussions. Trees were removed. I don't quite understand why she allowed you to remove the trees, and I don't understand the whole transaction.
Because it wasn't my choice.
Just a second. It was your choice. You wanted to park there. That's what you wanted.
But the trees was dying.
Yep, I don't care if they were dying. I don't care if they were shriveled up. I don't care. You carved out a piece of property. Now, if you carved out a piece of property that belongs to her and you didn't have an appropriate agreement in writing, which it has to be, then I believe, based upon her statement that you acted on, you're entitled to whatever you spent to renovate that property. Do you understand? You're not entitled to the property.
No, I understand.
You're not entitled to the property. You're entitled to what you spent to renovate the property. So now I want you to tell me, on what date did she tell you that she was not going to sell you the property?
That was 7/20 of 21. After I got everything done and called her and asked her, could she meet me at the bank? She said, no, I'm not selling to you for $1,000. But it goes deeper than that. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. It goes deeper than that, because when it came to the trees, I didn't approach her with the trees. She came to me and said, since the tree was dying, I said, well, I'll go in half with you. At that point, I said, when can I use the property? She said, you can use it as long as you need it. So that's when I started investing all this money into the property.
So what? I don't care. She said to you, you can use it as long as you want.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I said nothing permanent.
She said, as long as I need it. That's why I invested the gravel.
Okay. What I'm telling you, sir, is the purchase and sale of property has to be with a certain formality. If you dealt with an attorney, the attorney would tell you that it had to be in a formality, signed by her, signed by you, the contract that provided for sale, when it took place, what the survey was, whether her bank would agree to let her sell off a piece of the property because you have a mortgage, all of those things. That's why agreements to sell real property, which is land, have to be in accordance with a certain set of rules. This doesn't make it. However, if you relied on her statement in order to improve the property, to make it comfortable for you based upon her text message, I believe that you are entitled, based upon the text message, to what you spent to improve it. But you have to understand, she's not going to let you park there anymore.
And I'm okay with that.
Just a second. Are you still parking there?
No, ma'am.
Since when?
I would say September of 2022.
So you were parked there in July of 21, August of 21, September of 21, October of 21, November of 21, December of 21, January of 22, all the way up to September. You were parking there.
This is because we had...
Don't give me a because.
No,
that's either a yes or a no.
I was parked there, but we also had a civil case, too.
Which he dismissed 2 days before.
We had a civil case. She called the police.
He called the police on me twice.
The question was, when did she tell you she wasn't going to sell you the property?
September, when she agreed not to meet me at the bank. That's when she told me she wasn't going to sell.
September of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
I never knew we were meeting at a bank.
Just a second. So
I can do better
in
than that.
September of 2022, she advised you.
No, I'm sorry, it was August of 2021.
Well, show me in August of 2021 that you told him you weren't selling him the property.
Here's.
Okay, I'll take both, Kevin. Thank you.
And this was after she agreed.
Shh. Okay. I'm just looking for the date on this.
Yeah, there's not a date on there, I'm sorry, but that was after May 18th of 2021. That was maybe July or August of 2021 when I told him, since he didn't meet all the requirements, that I no longer want to sell
What
it.
requirements?
He never met the requirements of paying me the money or getting the land appraised. The only thing he didn't do that my mortgage required is the appraisal.
Ma'am, that wasn't true, because I did everything that the city of Akron told me to do, who deal with this on a regular.
Did you get an appraisal?
I got the land surveyed. She didn't tell me about nothing about appraisal until after I got everything done.
That's why you have a contract in writing for the sale of property, sir. I don't think you did anything intentionally wrong, but there was an appraisal that was necessary. Clearly, if she has a mortgage and a bank is giving her a certain amount of money on a parcel of property, and she wants to sell off a piece of that property, the bank is going to want to know how much the value of the property has diminished by her selling it to you. So you have to have an appraisal. Do you understand?
I understand that.
Okay, and you didn't have an appraisal. I'm not going to tell it to you again. And all I want to know is when she first told you that you didn't have a deal. So once she told you that you didn't have a deal, whatever else you invested in this property was on you.
No, and I didn't invest anything else other than getting an attorney and paying everything I needed to pay him.
Once she told you that she wasn't selling the property to you, what'd you need an attorney for? You're not the aggrieved party here. You got to park for free because she was a good soul. I would have had your trailer and your truck towed to an impound on day 2.
Julian Hall has accused his neighbor, Stacy Benedum, of breaking their agreement. Stacy claims there was never an agreement and is countersuing for parking fees.
Once she told you that she wasn't selling the property to you, what'd you need an attorney for?
Because I had already had an investment after she said she was going to sell it to me. Once the attorney got involved, he told me to dismiss the case. Then after that, like 3 days later, I moved off the property.
Just a minute. So who brought a civil case?
I did.
When?
Last year of 21.
And what happened with that case?
It was dismissed.
What did you bring a case against her for?
For breach of contract.
It was dismissed because there was no contract.
Your Honor, can I say something?
What?
He made all these improvements in 2018 before we ever discussed selling the property.
You mean he put the gravel in?
Yeah.
Well, how could he put the gravel in over trees?
The trees were cut down in 2018.
Is that right, sir? Hey,
That's correct.
the trees
yes,
that were cut down in 2018, well before this.
Yes.
So you did use it. You used it for how many years? You used it 18, 19, 20, and 21. You used it. You used it. You had value from it. You had value from somebody else's property. You used her property for you to park on. You
Yeah,
can't.
I wouldn't have done none of this if she would have told me no. Every move that I made, I asked her first. I got it in text message. I asked her, can I do this? Can I do this? She said, yeah, go ahead and do it. If she would have said no, I wouldn't have done none of it. I wouldn't have put a dime into the property.
I'm not going back to 2018, sir. If you made these improvements in the property in 2018 or 2019, before there was any hint of a writing that she was going to sell you property.
She had a verbal that I can park there as long as I wanted to.
Okay, your case is dismissed, Mr. Hall. You don't have a case. You did park there until she told you not to park there anymore. And you had the benefit of parking there for at least 3 years.
I got money invested that she told me
You
that
had
I
the
can do
benefit
it.
of parking your things there for at least 3 years. Are they gone now?
His truck and trailer are, but the gravel's still there, and we have to clean up, get rid of that stuff.
It was a huge mistake, so you're going to have to take care of that yourself.
Okay.
And I would take care of that because that looks ridiculous.
I will.
That looks ridiculous. You have a counterclaim
Yes.
for parking. Forget it.
But listen, I told him he couldn't park there back in May of 2021. He continued to park there till...
So you should have been more vigilant.
My attorney didn't notify him till May of this year of 2022 that if he continues to park there, we'll charge him $75 a day. And he continued to park there until the case was dismissed in August of 2022. So I'm only suing him for May of 2022 to August of 22.
And did he move it?
He did.
Okay. You still living there?
Yes.
Do you talk to him?
No.
Had you talked to him previously?
Yeah.
We had a good relationship.
I'm a common sense person and a property owner. It was overreaching to think that you could buy a piece of that land for $1,000. Overreaching. And if she had it appraised, and if it's something that you want, and she had, I guarantee you that that little piece of property would be appraised at a far higher cost than $1,000. Guaranteed. And I guarantee you that her bank would say, you can't let him buy that piece of property for $1,000. How much of a mortgage are you carrying?
$76,000.
Not going to let her sell off that piece of property. You had the benefit of that piece of property for several years. I have to tell you that I really think that it's much nicer to look at plain grass than it is to look at a trailer and a truck. from her backyard.
Your Honor, I wouldn't have done none of it. You would have said do it.
Do you know what your attorney said to you? I can't help you. You don't have a contract. And Mr. Hall, that's what I'm telling you. I can't help you. You don't have a contract. And from what I know now, this all started in 2018 before there was any discussion of buying the property that you can prove to me. Because the thing that you gave me was in 2021. I have to tell you, you never had a problem because she was a good neighbor. If she let you park on her property, so if you think you're the one who's been aggrieved here, the truth of the matter is I don't think that you're the one who was aggrieved here. She let you park on her property. I have to tell you, I wouldn't have let that happen. I had a neighbor who had an easement. And I said, all I want from you when I bought the house was I want you to say that you will never try to claim this property by adverse possession and that you understand that it's my property. And then you can use it because it was a place that looked like it was part of his driveway. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'm not signing that. I said, if you don't sign it, I'm going to put a fence right in the middle of your front lawn, which is where my property line is. I don't hear from him. I said, you have 24 hours to sign the paper or I'm putting a fence right in the middle of your front lawn because that's my property and you have an easement. And he didn't sign it. He would have lived with the fence until today because it's still there. Now his children are living with the fence because he's gone. You're not the aggrieved party here. You got to park for free for 4 years. For free. Because she was a good soul. She's not a bad guy. She was a good soul. I would have had your trailer and your truck towed to an impound on day 2. She let you park there for 4 years.
I wouldn't have been there.
Goodbye, we're done. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
She knew what type of work I did, so she said as long as I needed it.
It was just a tough lesson of being nice to the wrong person.
It did look like it was part of my yard, so I get that part.
I hope we can be cordial and just move on with our life.
It is what it is.
This is a great example of the statute of frauds and why it exists. So all writings for the sale of land, real estate, have to be in writing and signed by both parties. I'm sure it was created for situations just like these. There's a lot of moving parts. There's mortgages, there's banks involved a lot of the times.
There are easements, there are water rights,
Exactly.
there are all kinds of things.
Legally, they're some of the most complex documents that get drawn up. So it can't be a text message for $1,000 to sell off a piece of land without all the boxes being ticked.
Right. After May of 2021, when she wrote that piece...
For his detrimental reliance on the statement.
For his reliance on that statement to his own detriment by putting in gravel and other stuff.
But then it came out, it was way
It was
before.
put down in 18 before she ever said anything about selling
Took it upon himself.
Yeah, that would be on him.
Yeah.
And I don't feel badly for him because he got to park on property that wasn't his for almost 4 years.
Yeah.
Is suing musician Luther Fortenberry for breach of contract and copyright infringement.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge.
Hi.
Case 2081, Kepper versus Fortenberry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Kerper, it is your claim that the defendant breached a contract with you. The contract was a verbal contract. And the nature of that breach was the defendant envisioned in his mind the lyrics to a song. That was his business. And he asked, according to you, he asked you to put music to the lyrics. Am I understanding that correctly?
The latter part is true. However, it was more than just a verbal contract. It's also in writing.
Okay, I'm going to take a look at it.
Okay.
That's important. And according to your complaint, you did, in fact, write the music
Correct.
to his lyrics.
That is correct.
And you had an agreement in writing that you would share the profits of any exploitation of that song
That is correct.
with him.
Yes.
And that he breached that agreement.
Yes, there's also an agreement that he would give me proper credit whenever he was using that.
So now I would like to see if you say there was a written contract that's signed by both parties. That's what I want to see.
Okay. So this was the original version, which he offered me 25%.
Just a second.
Okay.
Just a second.
Sorry.
Okay. This contract is pretty straightforward, and it's signed by both parties, and it says Luther Winston Fortenberry created a song, Baby I Got a Gun, and Charles Kerper, that's you, transcribed it to guitar.
Correct.
So What this contract says, I just want you to understand, Mr. Kerper, is that the defendant created the song and you transcribed it to guitar. That's what it says. And that was written in January of 2016.
Correct.
It's signed by both people.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what you're showing me is something else.
How it started to change over time.
Listen to me. This was your written contract.
Right.
Any change in that contract, unless I could really find that there was a meeting of the minds with regard to it, has to be in the same formality of this contract. This initial contract is very clear. It does not say that you created this music. I'm telling you what this initial contract says. By the way, Mr. Fortenberry, this contract was written January 30th, 2016.
Yes, I'm looking at it.
Yes. When did you create this song? In what month and year?
About a year. I don't know exactly, but I was at a popular comedy store, and the manager of our show.
What show?
The Ding Dong Show.
What's the Ding Dong Show? When you said our show, was he involved in that?
Just with this transcription.
I was involved with other elements of the music as well, with Mr. Fortenberry.
Well, right now this says transcribe. And what I asked you, a simple question, when did you write this song?
At least a year before this contract.
At least a year before January 30th, 2016.
Yes. And I was singing it regularly a cappella at the club.
Okay. But you asked him to transcribe it. That's what it says. Now, this was done at the time that you transcribed it to guitar.
I would argue I'd never transcribed it because...
That's it, just a second. That's what this says. It doesn't say we'll transcribe it. It said transcribed it.
Correct.
To a guitar that they both agreed to submit for sale.
Correct.
Asking price will be $10,000 to rent and $10 million to sell it outright, and you will split it 75-25. That's what this says.
That is correct.
Now, did you ever rent it?
I never rented it or sold it.
Just a sec. Well, I'm asking you these questions. You never rented it?
No.
And $10 million to sell it outright, and you never sold it?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So it was neither rented nor sold, which was your original contract. And you have no proof to the contrary, that he neither rented it nor sold it.
I have evidence that he did use it in other productions.
It doesn't say that you can't use it.
Right, that is correct.
Okay, now you want to show me, sir, because this is what your action is, you want to show me that this original agreement was somehow modified
Correct.
to give you a wider berth.
This is correct.
Okay, so I'd like to see what you have in writing.
Okay. So immediately after that was signed, about 4 or 5 days later, you have the papers that's stapled behind. I confronted Mr. Fortenberry and I said, this is not a transcribing project. This is a rewriting project. What he provided to me was not usable for transcription. And on the next page, we have a text message exchange that I highlighted where he
Well, just a
changes...
second. Shh.
Sorry.
Well, this is a text message from him to you.
Correct. And he
right?
acknowledged...
And just a second, that's not acknowledging. That's a text message from him to you. Do you have your response to this? You can't unilaterally change a contract that's in writing. I mean, if you have an offer and an acceptance.
Right.
So where is your response to this?
I don't believe I had a response in the history of messages I was able to retrieve, so...
Then this is irrelevant.
Okay.
So far, we have this. We have a writing signed by both parties, which is complete. It says what you did, you will be paid in the event of a rental or a sale. Now, you want to show me something else?
So going forward, what he did was he registered the song with a registration company in San Diego. He did that without my knowledge.
Just a second, that's irrelevant. This is your contract. Show me where it's a violation of this contract. This contract says you transcribed it to guitar. If the version that you transcribed with a guitar is either rented or sold, you will get 25% of the revenue.
Right.
So we already went through that. You do not have any proof that he either rented it or sold it. It doesn't say that you will be given credit. It doesn't say what your credit will be. If you have a modification where he agreed that you will get certain credit and you accepted that, I will see that. Okay.
This is the most recent agreement signed in August 21st, 2018. It's dated August 8th.
Shh. I don't know what this means. Mr. Kerper
Yes.
agrees to release Mr. Fortenberry from any financial liability for work performed prior to the date of this document, that is, prior to 2018.
Correct.
Payment by Mr. Fortenberry to Mr. Kerper will be considered compensation for his time, costs, etc. Mr. Kerper has invested in this ongoing project to date. What did he pay you? Because it doesn't say here.
He didn't pay me anything. What he did was he gave me some camera equipment, which he'd promised me, which was outside of this project. And he gave me $300 as what was deemed a celebratory gift because we were wrapping this up to
No, that's
make
not
a
what
video.
this says, Mr. Kerper. Mr. Kerper, we read a contract literally.
Right.
This is a poorly crafted document, but it's clear in regards to Baby I Got Gun.
Right.
Mr. Kerper, that's you, agrees to release Mr. Fortenberry of any financial liability for work performed prior to the date of this document.
Correct.
Payment by Mr. Fortenberry to Mr. Kerper will be considered compensation for time, costs Mr. Kerper has invested in this ongoing project. And what you're telling me is the payment was some camera equipment and $300.
I would say it was not the camera equipment, it was the $300.
What the camera equipment?
This is some camera equipment I had. I had sold him some of it prior, and he had offered it back to me as a gift because I had invested so much work into this project.
You got 5 more minutes of my time.
Okay.
You have no case.
I believe I do, ma'am.
No.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Sorry, you don't. You want him to say, whenever he performs the song, I wrote this song together with Mr. Kerper, and I want you to understand that he's the music man. I don't know what a music man is. It's interesting when people sign contracts and they have no idea what they're doing.
Charles Kerper claims musician Luther Fortenberry owes for breach of contract and copyright infringement.
Now, those are the 2 written contracts. You have any further modification of those contracts in writing?
Yes,
Just a second. I'll see them.
Okay.
This is a contract in writing, 2018. This is 2016. And this was agreed by both parties. So the last agreement was you got $300. Did you pay him $300?
$300 in camera equipment, about $1,500 worth.
Okay. He started to mention that, and then he backtracked. Okay. Next written contract after 2018.
Yes. In that contract, which you have right now, it also says it serves to clarify previous misunderstandings that
Yes.
I wrote the music and I was not a transcriptionist.
Mr. Kerper is to be understood as the music man behind the music and not a transcriptionist. Well, who do you want that to be noted by? Mr. Kerper is to be understood as the music man with capital letters.
Right.
And I don't know what that means.
This was his wording.
Well, then you should have fixed the wording.
I should have, you're correct.
I don't know what a music man is. It's not a trademark, it's not a copyright, it's a nothing. I don't know what it means.
So I wrote the music, which is in the version which he's using currently. I wrote that from scratch. There was no
That doesn't say
transcribing.
that. That doesn't say that. Nothing here says that. The only thing this says is Luther Winston created this song, Baby I Got Gun. That says he created it, you signed it. You wanted to clarify it. You wanted to be known as the music man, not just the transcriber. I don't know what music man means. And you got paid pursuant to this, although it doesn't say this, but you acknowledge it, you got paid $300.
Okay, also in that agreement, it also says that I'll be given credit in future uses. It says that.
As the music man. You want him to say you're the music man?
Credit, which he did not give me
Just
credit.
a second. You want him to say, whenever he performs the song, Baby You Got Gun, if he gets up to perform that, I wrote this song together with Mr. Kerper, and I want you to understand that he's the music man. It's interesting when people sign contracts and they have no idea what they're doing. Okay, let me see the next contract that you have.
So this is an agreement which is supposed to be a performance agreement with his producer from the comedy club.
Well, just a second, let me take a look at it.
He's...
Shh. Well, this is exactly what this says. This says this agreement, and this is August of 2018. And who sent this, by the way?
Mr. Fortenberry sent that to me.
Okay, it said this agreement gives Luther the right to perform music as the opportunity arises. Luther is further released of any further financial responsibility or debt owed making music. Charlie Kerper will be referred to in the future as the Music Man. This payment will be for goods and costs making music for $300 and camera equipment. If any referral is made in the future as to who wrote and performed parts of said music above, Charlie Kerper will be given those credits.
Correct.
Okay? He sent that to you. Where is your response?
So he sent that back to me on August 8th.
Just a second.
Okay.
He sent this to you. So I would like to see your response to this. I agree to your terms. I disagree with your terms. If you agree with the terms, then I might accept that as a modification of a contract. If you say I disagree with the terms, then there is no modification. We go back to these two signed agreements.
Correct.
Where is your response to that?
Can I explain what happened after that? He's emailed that to me. I was here in LA, and I didn't have an opportunity to entirely go over it, but we were trying to meet with him at a restaurant and also at the museum to have this resolved. So I had my phone only to look at it, and he was playing hardball with me that day. So he sent me these emails saying he had signed these agreements, which included making referral to me and clarifying that I did in fact write the music, which he claims I transcribed.
I need your response to him.
Okay.
If there is no response, we have these two agreements.
So the response was this. That night, he finally agreed to meet with us.
In writing.
Yes.
I want what you sent to him in response to this email.
Well, I called him on the phone and I said, can we meet so we can sign this and put this past so the music video could be moved forward? And he wanted a performance agreement so there wasn't any questions whether or not they could use the music in the video. So I arrived at his apartment. He made us wait outside for half an hour.
Okay, you know, Mr. Kerper, I really don't care.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's not relevant.
Yeah.
What's relevant is if you had a subsequent offer and acceptance to a new contract, a modified contract that he made via email, and you responded to him via email that I accept those terms, or if you sent it to him and said, these are the terms I want, and he wrote back and I accept your terms, unless you have that, you are bound by these two written contracts, which means you got paid. You got paid $300 and some equipment. You got paid. Right. And according to this contract, when referring to this music and referring to you, he has to refer to you as in capital letters, the Music Man.
Correct. Giving me credit. Correct.
No, he has to refer to you as the Music Man.
It says here in this contract, I'm sorry, if any referrals made in the future as to who wrote and performed parts of said music above, Charlie Kerper will be given those credits.
Yeah, as the Music Man.
No, it does not say Music Man here.
Where?
It should say it in the, not that one. Not that one either, the other one.
There's no other, I only have two written contracts.
This is his original email to me that he sent me before the contract we're discussing, and it has my response. I have my response attached to it here. I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Okay. Who wrote, your offer is hostile and very lowball for what you're asking?
I wrote that.
I reject it.
Absolutely.
I'm not interested in selling.
That is correct.
Well, that doesn't modify. That means he made you a subsequent offer after these two agreements. You said, I don't like that offer. So there was no change in these two written contracts, one of which called for payment, which you acknowledge you received in the form of $300 and camera equipment. He was limited to using it on one particular program, and he's used it in other places. And I said, put your hand down. When it doesn't appear that you're losing, you're supposed to keep your mouth closed.
Charles Kerper is accusing musician Luther Fortenberry of breaking their contract. Luther claims he already paid Charles for his services.
Mr. Kerper, I want you to understand, you're looking at papers. What you're not understanding is, if you are going to modify a written contract, you have to do it with another contract in which there is an offer and an acceptance. He made an offer to you in this. You rejected the offer. in your response.
Actually, that email he sent first, he worded it differently, and that's
It
the point
doesn't
I'm
matter.
trying to
You
make.
rejected it.
I rejected the part that included the sale.
Just a second. You can't take pieces of what he says. If you're going to modify a contract which is clear, or as clear as it can be if two lay people write it, and which has been executed and fulfilled by terms of payment, because there was an exchange of cash and goods, which is indicated in here, you have to have a modified contract.
Correct.
This is not a modified contract. He says to you, this is what I'm going to do, and you said to him, I reject it. It's a low ball offer. So we're going to get back to, is there a subsequent modification that says, in addition to the $300 and the camera equipment and the fact that I will refer to you if I refer to anyone when he's singing the song, which I've never heard. I've heard of patter, where somebody talks about patter, and so-and-so wrote the song, and he wrote it when he was mourning the death of his dog, and then sings the song. That's patter. That's what I understand patter is, the chatter before. So if he was going to chatter about who wrote the song, he'd have to say, and the man behind the music is Mr. Music Man. That's all this says. And he's never sold it, and he's never rented it that you can establish.
He has used it in film production?
He can use it. Your contract doesn't prevent him from using it, sir.
The final, I'm sorry, but the first one I gave you is the final. That was what led up to the...
No, this is a clarification, because you asked, right? And this is your final payment, $300 and camera equipment, because that's what you both agree that you got. There is no modification.
There is, though.
Well, then show me.
On the top line of the final, it says it'll be used exclusively in the Ding Dong Show and nowhere else without permission, and that is what is...
Just a second. It says this agreement gives Luther Burbanry the right to perform name music in the Ding Dong Show and the promotional video.
Correct.
And?
That's it.
So?
So that is what he's limited to as far as performance.
Okay. And?
And he went and used my music in other productions without
consulting
me. Okay. I also have lyric sheets showing that...
Listen to me, sir.
Yes.
I've already explained to you what this case is about. It's a contract case.
Okay.
I'm not going to go through contracts 1 and contracts 2. It was painful enough when I went through it the first time, half a century ago.
Yeah.
What I'm telling you is you have no modification of a contract unless there's an offer and acceptance. The only 2 contracts you have are here. I absolutely read this, and it says this agreement gives Luther Fortenberry the right to perform music named in the Ding Dong Show and promotional video.
Correct.
That's what it says. You say he used it in other places.
That is correct.
There's no remedy if he uses it in other places. You only have a remedy, sir, if he sells it or rents it. And you're not asking for injunctive relief. There's no action.
He did with it, to be honest.
What?
I don't know what he's done. I've asked him for a complete statement of where he's used this
just
and
a
what
second.
payment.
Mr. Carper.
Yes.
You're the plaintiff.
Yes.
It's not his burden. It's your burden. What you're saying is he was limited to using it on one particular program, according to this, and promotional. And he's used it in other places. And I said, put your hand down. When it doesn't appear that you're losing, you're supposed to keep your mouth closed. It's your burden to show me that he used it in other places. That's first.
Okay.
Show me.
I can do that. I have the papers. I had it quite orderly before I came into court, and its nerves happen.
You can look for it, sir. I'm just advising you that your action is for breach of contract. That's what you filed. Right now, I have 2 contracts. One contract was fulfilled with the payment of $300 and camera equipment. There is an agreement here, however, that says he can use that music on certain things. It doesn't say exclusively on certain things. He says he can use it on the Ding Dong Show and promotional video. I assume promotional video, if you're inferring what that means, is for the Ding Dong Show. Now, it doesn't say it. If he uses the music someplace other than the Ding Dong Show and promotional video and he gets paid for it, I get a certain amount of money. Your original contract provides for a 75-25 split if the music is rented or sold.
Right.
That's what it provides for.
So when I accepted the payment on the contract, that was with the notion that he was going to give me credit in the future, which he has not done.
Okay, we're done here, Mr. Kerper. It's unfortunate, but you are bound by the terms of this contract. The terms of the contract are absolutely clear. You have one in 2018, and you have one in 2016. The one in 2016 is crystal clear. You're a transcriber, and as a transcriber, you will get 25% if the music is either rented or sold. Subsequently, there was a writing that says you don't want to be known as the transcriber, you want to be known as the music man.
Your Honor, I did not transcribe anything. I wrote the music,
okay.
and that's why
Mr.
the
Kerper, we're done. You got paid
paper-
$300 for writing the music and camera equipment. We're done. Your case is dismissed.
This court is adjourned.
Mr. Fortenberry approached me to transcribe a piece of music he
Well, I'm sorry she had to listen to so many lies.
presented me as completed, which it was not.
And I'm glad she had something in print like contracts.
I helped develop the lyrics further and also write the music.
I hoped that he would see the truth
Well, there's always more songs, isn't there?
and correct his lies.
While I really appreciate that these two plaintiff and defendants had a written contract, it's always a risk as a layperson to write a contract yourself. It has to be fully integrated, all the points have to be hit, and one major part that was lacking here was a remedy section. So if the plaintiff is claiming that he deserves some sort of credit or some sort of payment for a show or an exploitation of the song going forward, there needs to be a sentence, at least, that's a meeting of the minds as to what's going to happen if that condition is not met. In the future.
In the future, because the contract, the second contract in 2018 clearly said he was paid. And he was
And
paid.
he signed it.
And he signed it. He was paid $300 and some camera equipment. The defendant said it was worth $1,500. I don't know whether it was or it wasn't. Anyway, it was inartfully done. You have to give them credit for trying.
Yes.
For trying. You know, they're music people. They're artists.
Yeah. Language and specifics and details is more our forte as lawyers.
More important, it's so frightening that I think I have a memory somewhere back here of the Ding Dong Show. So I'm going in the back now and look up the Ding Dong Show.
Well, I'd like to hear that.
Michael Attar is suing his former clients, Mary and Michael Rhodes, for unpaid demolition work.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2115, Attar versus Rose.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Attar, you were hired to do some, according to you, demolition work and other work at a property owned by Mr. and Mrs. Rhodes. You gave them an estimate for that work. I think the estimate was $11,500. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it was outlined what work you were supposed to do. You started that work, and according to you, at some point there was disagreement with either or both of the Rhodeses, and they stopped payment on a check that they gave you. Correct. And the check that they gave you was for $4,200. And then you stopped work for them.
Yes, ma'am, we're finished.
So you're suing them for the canceled check and for other unpaid work that you did that you didn't get paid for.
Correct.
Mr. and Mrs. Rhodes say that they were not satisfied with the quality of your work. It cost them $9,000 to both replace things that were stolen from their property by either you or members of your team, something which I don't think that you question that somebody from your team, not you, somebody from your team may have taken metal property of theirs that they didn't own. So let's go back. Mr. and Mrs. Rhodes, is this a new property to you, or is this a property that you owned for a while?
It's a new property to us.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So is it a private house?
Yes, and we were remodeling it.
Okay, when did you purchase it?
We purchased in January of 2021.
Is it a single-family residence?
Yes.
How much did you pay for it?
$769,000.
Describe the property to me.
It's in northern Altaloma or Rancho Cucamonga. It's an acre property, has 2 levels on it, and a single-family ranch-style home on it right now. And what we asked him to do was demolition the lower half.
Do you have a photograph?
I do.
I'd like to look at a photograph of what you wanted him to do.
That's what the lower half looked like before.
So this whole portion you wanted him
correct
to demolish and remove the debris.
And grade flat.
Is that correct, sir?
I can't see from here, ma'am.
Okay. We're going to show it to you. To demolish it, flatten it, fill it in.
Remove all the debris.
Yes.
Okay. And did you have a written contract?
We did not.
Well, that's always a mistake.
Always.
How did you find him?
I believe I got his business card. It was on my personal car, I think at Home Depot. We had bought this house and we tried to find somebody to do the work, but...
Mr. Rhodes, let me tell you that the best way to find somebody is not somebody who leaves a card on your car at Home Depot or any place else.
Yeah.
It was a difficult time to find contractors with COVID and everything at that time.
And at the time, I'm also going to add, because I read in the paper somewhere at the time, he didn't have a license.
He did not.
And you knew he didn't have a license.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I told him, Your Honor. I do not
Just a
have
second.
license.
They didn't say no, we didn't know. They said we knew. So you got somebody who had no license to do what you wanted him to do, and you got his number from a card that he left on your windshield. Did you ask for references? That's either a yes or a no.
No, and I'm not really sure actually 100% on where I found that card. I think
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean,
but he did tell us he was in the process of getting his license, that it was coming.
Yeah. I know.
What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. You're two intelligent people. Okay. So you hired an unlicensed contractor to do work on your house and agreed to pay him $11,500. Now, Mr. Rattar, the $11,000 included labor and materials. Is that correct?
There was no material. It was labor and bins.
Well, that's material, labor and bins to remove
Yes, ma'am.
all the equipment that you needed
Yes, ma'am.
to complete the job.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Of before, too. Of what I was supposed to do, and I took a picture.
Well, no, I have that.
You have the wrong picture of me, Your Honor.
Okay, I'd like to see the picture that he has.
I was supposed to do from the post all the way to the other post, remove everything, and the pool and the deck.
Mr. Rattar, the $11,500 was an all-inclusive figure.
Yes, Your Honor.
One of the things that became an issue is a bobcat.
Correct.
From what I'm piecing together, you hired somebody in a bobcat to do a bobcat. That's a big piece of equipment that knocks down something.
I rented a bobcat.
And somebody who operated it.
My worker.
You didn't know how to operate the bobcat.
I know how to operate bobcat, but I was controlling the demolition site, ma'am. I was like many things were going at the same time. I had to control everything.
Mr. Rattar, something happened with the bobcat, the original one that you got. What happened with it?
It broke down on us.
No, it didn't break down on them. It broke down on you.
On us.
It broke down on you.
Yes.
So what did you do?
I took it back, and next day supposed to deliver me another one, but they sent me a drunk driver and another broken down bobcat. I returned it. At that moment, I asked Mrs. Rhodes, can you please go down Home Depot, which is like a mile away, so we don't stop wasting time, rent a bobcat or not.
Just a second. Why should she rent a bobcat, sir? Your $11,500 included the bobcat.
But I was paid for it.
No. If you're going to pay for it, that's one thing. Then what are you sending her for? If your $11,500 figure included all materials, then she doesn't have to rent a bobcat. If you rented one that didn't work, rent one that works. How much of a down payment did they give you?
Presume was $4,000.
When did you start the job?
I started the job on 15th of January.
When did you leave the job?
I was asked to leave on the 2nd of February.
On February 2nd?
Yes, ma'am. Not to go back, I will call the cops on you.
Between January 15th and February 2nd, other than the $4,000, did they give you any other money?
Yes, Your Honor, they did.
How much money did they give you?
They gave me up to $7,000.
So they gave you an additional $3,000?
Yes, and $1,000 check.
Your Honor, that was within the first week we gave him.
It doesn't matter to me. My question was between January 15th and February 2nd, they gave you $7,000.
Correct.
Explain the other $4,200, which is the check that they stopped payment on.
Okay. I'll happily explain to you. The bobcat she rented for me on her behalf, it cost $329 to rent per day. And I rented for one day only, but they charged me $800.
No, that's not correct.
Just a second. I didn't ask you anything.
Okay.
Do you have a photograph of what the property looked like when you left?
Yes, ma'am. The last picture I took before I was kicked out of the property.
You're talking, I'm not listening to you.
Michael Attar, claims his former clients, Mary and Michael Rhodes, owe for unpaid demolition work. Mary and Michael are countersuing for lost wages, equipment rental, and missing property.
Now, they paid you $7,000.
Correct.
They wrote you another check.
The final check was supposed to be $5,000, but they only gave me $4,200 because they minus $800 for the Bobcat rental.
Just a second. First of all, the total bill wasn't 7 and 5. 7 and 5, even my rudimentary math, is $12,000. That would be $500 more than your agreed contract, which was for 11.5.
They gave me $6,500 because they gave me small checks. They gave me the first initial
Just
check,
a second.
and they gave me smaller ones.
Sir, you're the businessman, whether you have a license or not. I asked you before how much money did they give you between January 15th and February 2nd, and you said $7,000.
I didn't write it down, Your Honor.
Well, you're here asking for money, and you have to write it down.
You have to have some work I've done performed already. And no,
sir.
And I just did the job, Your Honor. I did 7, 8 other side jobs for them.
I don't care whether you did 7 or 8 side jobs. Your original agreement with them was for $11,500, including all material. Now, what you said to me was that they gave you $7,000, and you said they're supposed to give me another $5,000. Well, another $5,000 is more than your quote.
Ma'am, the balance was $5,000.
How?
The initial check, then they gave me $1,000.
How much money did you give them all together that he cashed?
$7,000.
Then they owed you $4,500, pursuant to your agreement.
We agreed to $11,000, not $11,500.
$11,500, Your Honor.
Anybody have any proof of what the agreed amount was?
We had a verbal contract with me, Mr. Rhodes.
Fine. I will indicate that it's $11,500. If they gave you $7,000, they don't owe you $5,000. They owed you the difference between $11,500 and the $7,000 that they gave you. Now, one of the things that you disputed, Mr. Attar, was this Bobcat. Who paid for the Bobcat? Show me.
They minus it from the final price.
Just a second. Was that an argument?
The argument about is, Your Honor, is they rented for 1 day, but they charged me 2 days, $800. There's no Bobcat rental for $800 for 2 days. I got.
Do you have the bill for the Bobcat?
I do, yes. And it was for 2 days.
Go over a certain time.
Because it was returned late. So they charged a second day. But in his text messages, he did request it for 2 days.
Is that the total price?
Yes, and I did not subtract it from his payment.
Total contract was $652.74?
Yes.
Do you have a photograph of what the property looked like when you left?
Yes, ma'am. The last picture I took before I was kicked out of the property.
You're talking, I'm not listening to you. Just show me a picture.
Yes, ma'am. This is not a picture.
Mr. Attar, you're the businessman.
Yes, ma'am.
This is your company.
Yes, ma'am.
Company requires, A, a license before you operate, which you didn't have.
If you did.
B, it requires a written contract. You're the businessman. They're people who bought a house who got your number off a windshield someplace. You're the businessman, and you want the parameters. You want them fixed. So I don't know if it's 11,000 or 11,500. Do you understand?
Very much, Your Honor.
Right. Well, that's your mistake. You look as if you've probably been in business for a long time.
14 years.
And is what you're telling me you don't have written contracts?
All my contracts are verbal.
Then how many times have you been in court, sir?
Never.
Never.
I've never had a stop payment check. Never pays me on time, Your Honor.
It's a problem. Sir, when you finished, the debris wasn't all removed.
That wood, they kept telling me, don't touch it. Their neighbor, cousin, whoever's going to come pick it up. That was just cut court wood.
No. There's brick, there's wood, there's cement.
We cleaned all that. I personally cleaned all that.
Just a second. What I asked you, Mr. Attar, was show me a picture of the property when you left. This is the picture that you showed me.
That was the last, before I had more work, I came in and did more. I wasn't taking pictures. I wasn't expecting somebody to stop payment on a check, Your Honor. I was not expecting that.
Pictures of what it looked like when he left.
What about after?
Well, what are you showing me here? This brick that's here?
They piled it there and then left it there.
Well, that's probably a good one.
No, it was supposed to be removed.
So this is the back.
That's the picture of the sagging patio because he removed part of the supports that were holding up the patio that he wasn't supposed to. So it's now sagging.
Now, This is the picture that you gave me when you told me this is what you wanted, level, cleared, and made flat.
Right.
Now, I want to see your picture of what this looked like when he left.
You have it. It's in some of those photos.
Flat's leveled.
You're talking about this?
Yeah.
That's part of it. The close-ups, that's part of it.
Well, it looks like most of the stuff is done. It looked like a lot of cleanup left.
No, ma'am, we've done all the cleanup.
Well, I haven't seen that, so then what you're supposed to do is take a photograph.
It was also buried underneath. These are the photos of when we did it ourselves and really leveled it out. And as we were doing that, we found so much buried underneath that should have been removed, but his Bobcat person buried it all.
Your Honor.
Mean buried
all the debris, all the concrete brick.
Okay, let me see the bill from the...
No, we did it ourselves. We rented equipment and did it ourselves on his vacation.
Oh, nice. Okay, $4,500 is so far what's owed on this contract. Now, your counterclaim is money owed for lost work, equipment rentals, labor and missing damages to property. What money owed for lost work?
During the second week that he was working, he called and said that his crew had left. This was the second day of supposed to be use of the Bobcat that I rented.
Okay, if you interrupt me again, I'm just dismissing your case. Do you understand?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. So just explain lost work. Who's lost work?
His.
Oh, forget it.
Well, he called and said his crew left.
Forget it.
He can't finish the job.
You weren't living there.
Not yet, no.
You weren't living there. Okay. He wants to go. I'm not interested in his lost wages for taking care of his house. So far, you owe the man the balance on his contract, unless you had somebody else do it, which is absolutely fine. And I would look at that removal of debris, what it costs you, and you're absolutely entitled to that. Deducted from what you owe him, which is $4,500.
But he didn't finish the job.
Just a second. You tell me, how am I supposed to gauge how much of the job he didn't finish? Did he not complete $2,500 worth, $3,500 worth, $1,500 worth?
I think the $7,000 we paid him was overpaid. He didn't have to end up removing an entire pool. He only had to remove...
That's your problem. Just a second. I read that. You said it's not a big pool. It wasn't 8 feet. It was only 24 inches. He gave you a price to level everything. Nothing delineated, nothing in a written contract. The pool turns out to be 2 feet instead of 6 feet or 2 feet instead of 8 feet. Well, if he was the contractor and he came out and he looked at the pool, he said, oh, this is an 8-foot pool, and it turned out it's a 12-foot pool, he'd be stuck with 11.5, just like you're stuck with 11.5 because it was shallower. Now, you owe him $4,500 unless you want to produce for me bills that you have for rental equipment, et cetera, and I will absolutely deduct that from the $4,500. Just give me the bills and the amount of equipment. Don't say nothing, Mr. Retard. Mr. Rhodes, did you rent a Bobcat?
The one that I cleaned up the yard with?
Yes.
I rented a piece of equipment.
Jump up!
Yes.
And you know how they pick up metal?
No, I don't know that, sir. I'm a television personality. I don't know about people driving down the street to pick up metal. I've never had somebody drive down the street and say, I'm looking for metal. They don't even come down my street and ask if I want sharp knives.
Michael Attar has accused his former clients, Mary and Michael Rhodes, of refusing to pay for demolition work. Mary and Michael claim he never finished the job and stole their property.
Now, what did you rent?
A skip loader.
That's different from a Bobcat.
Yes, that's correct.
Smaller?
I would say bigger.
Bigger. And do you remember how much it cost you? Did you rent it from Home Depot?
No. It's from a local rental yard. I think it was
all the equipment we rented
in Ontario.
$1,300.
Yeah.
Find it.
Yeah.
Find the bill.
They didn't print it, so now I gotta.
How many days did you have it, Mr. Rhodes?
4.
I'm dismissing your counterclaim, Mrs. Rhodes. Do you want to know why? Because I asked him a specific question, and you answered. Do you understand? Do you understand? That part of your counterclaim, because you don't have it, you can't find it. So far you owe him $4,500. Not $8,600, but $4,500. Now, do you have any proof that Mr. Attar or someone from his team stole copper piping or whatever piping that you claim is missing? Do you have any proof that either Mr. Attar or anyone under his authority took property from you?
Yes. We have text messages back and forth.
Okay, I'll read them. Okay, so what you're referring to with regard to the stolen property is you send a picture and there's a little piece of pipe there, one piece of pipe, and you say, Mike, did you or your guys happen to grind off 2 metal poles and concrete blocks? The kids use those for volleyball nets. And he says, oh my God, no, sir, but I'm guessing the person whom I gave my medal to, no problem, Michael, please give, and I don't see the rest of this message.
Yes, so that was the beginning of things we noticed that were missing.
Oh, I don't care. If this is what you're talking about?
Yes, he's saying he let a metal person onto our yard, and they went and took everything that was metal.
Okay. Okay, now, Mr. Attar.
Yes, Your Honor.
I want you to tell me about the missing metal on this property.
She was standing right there, and there was a metal guy that drive down the street. And you know how they pick up metal?
No, I don't know that, sir. I'm a television personality. I don't know about people driving down the street to pick up metal. I've never had somebody drive down the street and say, I'm looking for metal. They don't even come down my street and ask if I want sharp knives.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Very much, Your Honor.
Do you understand?
Very much, Your Honor.
Okay. Who is this person?
This person was picking up metal, and I asked for permission. I said, ma'am, can you come down the property?
Just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Was this person picking up metal for nothing?
Yes,
Just a second. Yeah. You're a business guy. Mr. Attar, somebody drives down the street and says, you know, I see you're doing construction. Is there any metal around here that you want me to dispose of?
Yes, ma'am, they do a lot.
Yes, and then they look around. This is what you tell them. They look around and they take the metal for nothing.
Yes, ma'am. This would be cheaper for me instead of load it on my trailer and take it to the recycling metal yard.
So what metal did they take, sir? I assume
everything
what?
that I gave them.
What did you give them?
Nobody went up there and cut no poles, ma'am.
Well, they sent you a picture of a pole, sir, and in response to the picture of the pole, you said, oh, my God, I'm guessing the person whom I gave my medal to.
I'm guessing.
No problem. And then you say later, tell me what it is, and I will either look high and low to get it back or replace it. That's what you say.
Yes, I offered to replace it.
That's what you say.
I offered to replace it.
Now, next question. I need an itemized list and what the value was of the metal taken.
No, there's a list of everything. They're listed in there.
What is this?
Those are all the damages, but the metal is listed in there separately of the items that are missing.
No, it isn't. This is a whole bunch of other things that you prepared for this case.
It's in there underneath. There's the horse feeder. Part of the corral was cut off.
This is something that you wrote yourself.
Yes, you said an itemized list.
If they took 6 feet of pipe, get me a bill from Home Depot for the replacement of that pipe.
Oh, I have
all the bills for the replacement of metal, not what you prepared for this litigation.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Itemized list.
Did you take down a horse corral?
No, Your Honor, I did not take no horse corral. I have nothing
Horse
to
corral,
do.
is that metal or is it?
It's made out of galvanized metal, yeah. They cut pieces off of that were sticking up to take to recycle, I guess.
Just a second. Was there a 4-sided horse corral?
Yes.
That looked like this?
Yes.
That they took down?
They cut pieces that were sticking up above the horse corral, attached to the horse corral.
You're being petty. You're being petty. $306, Ram's price, galvanized wall-mounted horse feeder. Did you take a horse feeder?
No, Your Honor, I got no.
Yo, Mr. Attar, $4,500. Judgment for the plaintiff. Counterclaims dismissed. We're finished.
This court is adjourned.
Well, his equipment broke, and he wanted us to rent the equipment for him.
Equipment died because things break down.
And then the next day, he calls and says he can't finish it.
At that moment, I didn't have a credit card to my name. And that's the honest truth.
So we pretty much figured that was job abandonment at that point.
I'm going to have a written contract in the future. Don't hire
Always
him.
hire a professional.
I could not believe that your first question to him when he said that he'd been working as a contractor for 14 years was, and you've been working all 14 of those years unlicensed?
Oh, yeah.
I was waiting for the question. I was waiting at the edge of my seat, and it never came.
Different minds. Yeah. should have slipped me a note.
I should have.
You should have slipped me a note. No, that actually didn't cross my mind, but that's a good question.
Yeah, oral contracts and no license.
And no license, but there's no question. He did the work.
Yeah, no, I agree.
He did the work, and they were really dickering over who was going to absorb the cost of this second Bobcat that they had to get, which was really ridiculous. If they had had another contractor who came and completed the job,
you would have awarded that.
I would have deducted it from the $4,500 that they owed him. But absent that, the fact that he rented some sort of piece of equipment and came and cleaned up the property was not important to me, and the rest of their case was nonsense. Next time, they won't employ somebody for $11,000 from a card from your windshield.
At Home Depot.
From
Anywhere.
wherever, and not say, okay, listen, maybe I'll give him a shot. Give me 3 of your last references to call.
It's a good lesson to people out there,
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Kimberly Gutierrez is suing her mother, Rhonda George, for false allegations, debit card charges, and personal belongings.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case 2131, Gutierrez versus George.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss Gutierrez, this is your mother.
Yes, ma'am.
And who is this?
My grandmother.
And that's your daughter?
Yes.
I'm reading the complaint and the answer, and this is what your complaint is about. You claim that your mother had you falsely arrested, as a result of which you spent 4 months in jail. While you were in jail, it is your claim that your mother used a debit card of yours, I think $3,000 worth, and you had some belongings at her house that you want. I gather that you've had some problems in your own life. You have at least 3 children.
Yes.
Was the state ever involved in placing the children in foster care?
No.
And what about your daughter?
My daughter, yes.
And how old is your daughter?
She's 19 months.
At what point did the state become involved with your daughter?
In May of this year, May 18th of this year, when there was false allegations made against, when my mom refused to give me my daughter back.
In May, when you brought your daughter to your mother's house, when?
I called my brother on May 17th of 2022, and I asked him to babysit my daughter.
Your brother. And does your brother live with your mother?
Yes, he was staying with her at that time.
So on the 17th, you asked your brother, who was staying with your mother, if he would babysit for your daughter. Where were you going?
I was needing to go to Fresno, and I had just received my income tax check. So I needed to go to Fresno, and I was on foot because my car was impounded the day prior.
Were you going alone?
To Fresno, yes.
So you brought your daughter on the 17th of May to your mother's house, and your brother was supposed to watch him, according to you, while you went to Fresno.
Yeah, he met me down the street, actually, because there's a restraining order. So I didn't actually go to the resident.
Who has a restraining order?
My mother has a restraining order on me.
Is the restraining order that she has against you a final order or a temporary order?
It's good for 3 years. That's all I know.
That's a final order. Was that a final order of protection after a trial, or did you consent to it?
I was not notified of the court date. Didn't consent to anything.
Okay, so it was a default.
I don't know what that means.
It means you didn't show up and they entered a final order of protection in favor of your mother. So you're not permitted to go to her home.
Right.
Since that's not really the subject of this, I don't have to get into it. In any event, you went on the 17th, you dropped your child off at your mother's house, your brother was there, and then what happened?
I finally got to Fresno, I got a ride, I got to the check cashing place. It literally took me...
Don't tell me, I'm not interested in that. 17th, you dropped the child off. You were supposed to pick the child up when?
That evening.
On the 17th?
Yes.
And did you?
I showed up it was a little before 10. I showed up, I called my brother, I said, I'm down the street. He was like, yeah, I'll be right there.
10 o'clock at night?
It was almost, ma'am, I was on foot. And
it's just a second. I asked you 10 o'clock at night.
It was right before 10, yes.
Okay.
When I got there, I called him. It had been about 15 minutes had gone by, and I called him back, and I said, where are you at? And he said, Mom won't let me leave with the baby. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, Mom won't let me leave with the baby. My mother instinct kicked in, and I went in like fight or flight, and I walked down to my mom's house, and I knocked on the door and was asking for my daughter. I finally came to my...
Okay, so when your brother said that to you, instead of going to the police, you violated the order of protection.
I ended up leaving and calling the sheriff.
Okay, but you didn't. You went...
Of course, yes. I was going for my daughter. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what happened at 10 o'clock at night or 10:30?
Yes. I finally realized that about 5 minutes of being at the house, I was like, okay, you need to leave. So I left because she wouldn't open the door to give me my daughter. I left. I called the sheriff. And so I told them the situation. So they had walked down to my mother's and let her know that what she was doing was basically...
No, not what she was doing. The police came
and told her
with
that they
you.
could arrest her. And told her that if she did not, that she needed to get my daughter back. But because it was late, the baby was already asleep. And so the cops that came back down to me and they said, look, we don't, because they knew me.
Whatever. I'm allowing you to give me a certain amount of hearsay so that I can make this story make sense.
Oh, okay.
Do you understand? But don't tell me because they knew you, what they thought.
Yes, ma'am.
You were told to come back in the morning.
Yeah, the agreement was that between my mom and the sheriff was that I could pick up Malia in the morning. The sheriff told me to call before 6 o'clock in the morning before he got off his shift and that he would come back out and do another standby. The next morning came. Between me and my grandma, I had us call my mom. And
No, just a second. What does that mean between you and your grandma? Your agreement was you were supposed to call the sheriff. The sheriff, according to you, before 6.
I called my grandma.
No, not the grandma. The agreement was you weren't supposed to call your grandma. You were supposed to call the sheriff.
Right, but I needed a ride. I needed a ride. So I called my grandma to have her come pick me up.
Just a second. Where were you?
I was staying at a friend's house. I didn't live in Selma.
Just a second. You were staying at what friend's house?
The sheriff came, got behind us, and tried to pin us in, and my grandma went to take off.
So your grandmother was driving.
Yes, ma'am.
And she was trying to evade the police to go someplace else.
Kimberly Gutierrez claims her mother, Rhonda George, owes for debit card charges and personal belongings.
You were staying at what friend's house?
My friend Isaiah's.
Isaiah?
Yes. I stayed the night there waiting for my daughter.
Just a second. Isaiah. Isaiah what?
Bonilla.
And what is your relationship with him?
He's my best friend. He's been my best friend since high school.
Where are you living now?
I live with my grandmother right now since I was released.
Full time?
Right now, yes.
What do you mean right now, yes?
I'm in the process of getting my own place.
Okay, so you called your grandmother and then?
Called the sheriff.
And then?
Waited for the sheriff to respond.
And then?
The sheriff did not respond for a few hours.
Okay, so you were waiting for the sheriff to respond. The sheriff did not respond until when?
It was after 7 o'clock in the morning, and it wasn't even yes, ma'am, 7 a.m.
7 a.m. Your daughter is, according to you, 19 months old? 19 months old. And she had prior to that been living with you?
Yeah, she was living with me all the time, yes.
She was living with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now let's get back to this arrest that you had. According to your papers, your daughter was with you up until that time. What time did she wake up in the morning?
Usually she wakes up between 7:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, well, then could you tell me why, if she wakes up between 7:30 and 8, why you would even contemplate picking her up before 8 o'clock in the morning?
Because one of my issues was with certain officers that would have been responding, and the officer that responded the night of the incident, he told me if you wanted me to be the officer to respond, you need to call me before I get off my shift.
Fine, but he didn't respond to you. But according to you, he didn't respond to you.
No, it was
so
a different
my
officer.
Question to you is,
they did respond at 7 o'clock in the morning.
And did what?
It was a horrible mess.
Well, he did what?
They responded. When they responded, he showed up. The officer told me that he did not want to be there. He said, if I have my way, you'll never see your daughter again. And I looked at him, and I said, wow, okay.
What do you mean you looked at him? Where were you when you looked at him?
I was right next to him, but I just...
Where, at the precinct or at your house?
No, down the street from my mom's.
Okay, so he responded to you when you were down the street at your mother's house, and he said, I'm not getting involved in this, and if I had my way, you would never have your daughter. And so what did you do?
So at that point, my grandma pulled up, and I told him, I said, your assistance is no longer needed, and that my grandma could just get my daughter. And he says, well, you already called me. The deputy did. So I said, okay, whatever. He asked me if I had somewhere to live, and I said yes, and whatever. And so he went down to my mom's. When he went down to my mom's, he was supposed to just go down there and get my daughter. When he was taking too long, I could walk so far this way, and I could see straight down my mom's street. So I did. When I did, I seen that my mom was out there just giving him an earful. I know this woman very well, okay? So I just imagined what was being said about me. Well, I guess the back door is screwed and nailed shut at the house. I don't know why.
I don't know. It's not important.
Yeah. So, anyways, my best friend went over the back fence.
What do you mean your best friend?
Isaiah Bonilla.
Oh, so you brought Isaiah with you?
He went.
Just a second. So you have your grandmother, and then you've got Isaiah, your best friend, also to go to your mother's house.
Yes, ma'am. He got my daughter.
Isaiah brought her to where you were.
Yes.
And then what happened?
I started walking back towards Isaiah's house. When I started walking back towards Isaiah's house, my grandma pulled up in her car and she was like, "Are you ready to go get your car out of the impound lot?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm ready." And so I got in her back seat with my daughter. When I got in the back seat, I got in the middle. Well, then she was like, "Well, I don't know what's gonna happen. Your mom's over there saying a whole bunch of stuff to the deputies, so I don't know what's gonna happen." And so I was like, "Well, I gotta go get my stuff from Isaiah's." So I go to jump back out the car. As I go to jump back out the car.
But just a second. Now you have your daughter.
Because I needed my wallet. My bag was at Isaiah's. My purse and everything was at Isaiah's. I was gonna go back and pick it up. Well, right when we were gonna go back, the sheriff came, got behind us, and tried to like pin us in, and my grandma went to take off.
So your grandmother was driving.
Yes, ma'am.
And she was trying to evade the police to go someplace else.
Yes, ma'am.
And how many police cars were involved?
One.
Were there ever any more than one police car?
Once we got to the police department, of course, there's a police department.
No, I'm talking about the number of police cars. So there's a police car now.
Like coming behind us? No, it was just one.
It was just one?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were accelerating to get there? Was the police car siren on?
No.
Well, how did you know that he was trying to pull you over?
Because he tried to hit her car.
Oh, that would give you a clue. So you're telling me he tried to hit your grandmother's car without notifying you in any way to pull over?
Yes, ma'am. That's why I spent 4 months in jail, and I beat my case. I went to trial and beat my case. Everything was dismissed.
I'm not responsible for the criminal justice system. I'm only responsible for what goes on here.
Yes, ma'am.
So I assume once you got to the police station, both you and your grandmother were arrested?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was in May?
Yes, ma'am.
And now uncross your arms. And now we're in December.
Yes, ma'am.
Of the same year.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're out of jail.
Yes, ma'am.
And you've been out of jail for about?
Since August 25th.
Who does your daughter live with?
Right now, she's with the mentor. She's my ex-husband's aunt, ma'am.
And who placed her with your ex-husband's aunt?
I did.
Not the court?
No, I requested her.
Does the child's great aunt have guardianship?
No,
custody?
I'm getting my daughter back, ma'am.
But for the last 3 months, she's been with this aunt.
Right, because Child Protective Services did get involved, and Child Protective Services, I've been doing everything that...
Well, that's what I asked you. I asked you whether Child Protective Services
Child Protective Services did get involved with my daughter, yes.
Did? That's what I assumed.
And I've been drug testing, I've been doing...
Just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I assumed, that Child Protective Services was involved. And so if Child Protective Services are involved, then they are overseeing the child's placement with the aunt. You have an ongoing case.
Yes, ma'am.
Probate court.
No, not probate.
Which one? Family court?
Family court, yes.
When was the case opened with regard to your daughter in the family court?
May 18th, the day I got arrested, ma'am.
And that child became involved with the foster care system in May. Okay, so your grandmother also spent a little time in jail. How much?
2 weeks.
I quite frankly don't understand your case.
While I was in jail, Your Honor, while I was incarcerated, my mom had all my debit cards, my ID. She had went and actually, because of me getting arrested, she had went to Isaiah's and picked up all of my stuff.
You mean, just a second. Let me understand this. It is your claim that the reason that you had to go to Isaiah's house was to get your pocketbook, your wallet, your credit card that you left there.
But I never made it there.
I understand that. And Isaiah, clearly, from what you tell me, knew of the problem because he was part of this little conspiracy to get your daughter out of the house and was at the back of the house to pick up your daughter who was being put over the fence. So why would Isaiah give your mother?
Because she went over there with a baseball bat and busted out his windows. On February 4th this year, I lost my twins, okay? And that was the first time I had contacted my mother because I was going through it and I messaged her and I told her, I said, I really need my mom right now. If anything, I need my mom right now.
Kimberly Gutierrez is accusing her mother, Rhonda George, of wrongfully using her debit card and keeping her belongings.
So why would Isaiah give your mother?
Because she went over there with a baseball bat and busted out his windows. And the reason why all of my things were at my mother's was because I hadn't lived at my mom's for over a year.
What your case is about
is my belongings.
You claim that your mother went over and got your wallet from Isaiah's, because I asked you what you were doing here. I certainly am not looking into the allegations of false arrest. It sounds as if you did the absolute wrong thing in trying to regain your daughter, whose custody, actually, you lost at a dispositional hearing and was determined to be a dependent child and placed in foster care. That's what happened here.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not even addressing your claims of false arrest.
Okay,
what you did was actually the wrong thing. I said, so what are you suing for? Now,
my,
you said
my
you're...
belongings,
okay.
my
what,
money.
Just a second. What money?
She used my CalFresh, which is my EBT food stamps, and my CalWorks, which is my cash aid through the welfare department.
Just a second. So you're suing her for taking your food stamps and your welfare check?
Right.
Just a second. Your food stamps and your welfare check.
And this is the statement from my tax return of all the money that was on there.
On where?
On my debit card. It had over $3,000 on it, and I marked what was used after she had picked it up. And then these are receipts from some of my belongings that was at her house.
Just a second. You haven't lived in your mother's house for...
I moved back to my mother's in the beginning.
Just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
You hadn't lived in your mother's house. According to what you said to me, Whitney, was it a year ago? Didn't you say that you moved out of your mother?
My mom allowed me to come back.
Because there was an order of protection.
She had called me. I was living in Fresno, ma'am.
Just a second. You hadn't lived in your mother's house. You said you were living with your grandmother. For how long were you living with your grandmother before May?
I said I was living with my grandmother right now. I was living in Fresno, ma'am.
I want to know what property you think...
My clothing, my husband's clothing, my daughter's bassinet. I had jewelry there. I had all of my clothing.
Why would all of your clothing be there? You were living with your grandmother.
I hadn't moved into my grandmother's until I got out of jail. I was living in Fresno. And my mom...
Just a second.
You're not letting me talk.
I'm not understanding your movements.
Okay, my mom kicked me out in 2021, okay? My daughter was just a few weeks old. My mom kicked me out due to her boyfriend.
She kicked you out?
Yes.
And?
When she kicked me out, I went through Marjorie Mason, and Marjorie Mason had placed me in hotels. I was placed in hotels for about 3 or 4 months, okay? And then it was about January of 21. I was at this time, I was pregnant with twins. They had genetic defects. On February 4th this year, I lost my twins, okay? And that was the first time I had contacted my mother because I was going through it, and I messaged her and I told her, I said, I really need my mom right now. If anything, I need my mom right now. My daughter, she had not seen my daughter. She was not a part of my daughter's life. I did not speak to my mother, nothing. So she made an agreement that she would watch my daughter, because I had to go to San Francisco because I was too far along in my pregnancy, and it was just a big old mess.
Do you have any of your daughter's property?
No.
Okay, now, let's talk about this card. Did you pick up her property from Isaiah? That's either a yes or a no, after the 18th of May.
Well, how do I answer that when I did pick up her property, but her cards were not in there? Her driver's license wasn't in there. Her food stamp card wasn't in there.
What were you doing at Isaiah's?
So she asked...
Was this when she was in jail?
Yes, right after she got arrested. So I went down there. No problem. He handed it right to me. Look in my wallet, make sure everything's in there. Like I said, I don't know if it was her driver's license or ID was missing, her food stamp card, and the other card, the bank card. I don't know how to get proof, but her best friend, he cashed out everybody money. There was a bunch of people, even himself.
Information right here.
Even himself and his girlfriend. I don't want to get into the whole...
I don't want to get into it either. It's far too complicated for me. Is what you're telling me that you never used a card that she had?
No, I did not.
Because I'm not concerned about food stamps or welfare.
I did not.
You're suing the wrong person. You were in jail, so you didn't need money from welfare. What proof do you have that
I have my bank statement.
What proof do you have that your mother withdrew money. What?
She was the one that went and picked up my cards.
Oh, I don't know that. That's not what she says, and you have no proof. Isaiah's not here, correct?
No.
I don't doubt you when you say that somebody used your card. I just need proof
My
to
mother,
show.
I know that she was supposed to get my daughter from CPS. She was supposed to go get a crib with my card, and I have the where she, and my grandma can.
I just want you to show
Yes,
me.
ma'am.
No. That your mother. I believe that people used your card.
She used my card.
No, I don't know that. I need you to show me proof that your mother.
How am I supposed to show? I have my bank statements.
Then I'll take a look at your bank statement. If your bank statement tells me who used your card, then that's an easy. She said she did not. I just want you to show me proof that any of these were used. I mean, we have a lot of PlayStations, DoorDash, Amazon Marketplace.
And
all
I
of
was locked
those.
up throughout that whole time.
I understand that. I suggest that you concentrate on getting yourself together. If you want to reunite your family, I suggest that you put your priorities in order.
Oh, they are in order.
Evidently not.
I work, I have a job, I go to school, I'm getting my own place, but I'm going to court. I'm getting my kids back.
Good.
Can I give you this?
I don't know what it is.
Well, I just want you to look at it.
Can I see it? You're telling me this is part of your daughter's criminal history? What is this?
No, I'm just showing you she just got out of jail just a couple of days ago.
They haven't picked up charges, Your Honor.
You were arrested on November 28th?
Yes.
I'm not going to let you tell me about this. You have a lawyer?
Yes.
As I said, Ms. Gutierrez, if you're trying to work to get your family back together,
Yes, ma'am.
and your kids back together,
Yes, ma'am.
it would be a good idea to think about having more children until you get these children back under your roof. We're done here. Your case is dismissed.
You have a good day.
This court is adjourned.
Oh, I love her decision. I don't want to have nothing to do with any of them. They've burned their bridges.
Perfect example of suffer the little children. So you have 3 kids, none of whom live with you. They go back and forth between a grandmother who would participate in evading the police, but where the police had to stop them by ramming the car.
Yeah, I was going to say there was something in the papers about a crash and.
She said he tried to ram my mother's car. So fingers crossed for her.
Yeah, and the kids.
But take care.
Is suing fellow motorist Robin Major for scooter damages after Robin hit Matthew's scooter.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, everyone.
Hello, Judge. Case 2197, Klinghoffer versus Major.
Thank you. You were riding a motor scooter.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you describe it for me, please?
It is a 2018 Yamaha Zuma.
Is that a small?
No, it's, I got a picture of it here.
Can I see that, please? Yeah, well, it's small.
Yeah, it's a small vehicle.
You were on this vehicle with a child?
Yes, ma'am.
That was your son, who's how old?
12.
What's his name?
Justin Barr.
He's not here today.
No.
Why not?
He has autism.
And you were riding with him going where on October 20th of last year?
I just picked him up from school and I was on my way home.
How far is it?
The school is less than a half a mile from my home.
Do you pick him up every day?
Most of the time, yeah, but since this accident, I have not picked him up since. Mom does.
So there's a car available to
Yes.
pick him up. It's your claim that the defendant, while acting negligently, hit your scooter and damaged it.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
want him to be responsible. That happened on the 22nd of October. I assume sometime after 3 o'clock?
Yes. It was at
In
3:18.
In what state do you live?
Evansville, Indiana.
Is there any sort of helmet rule in Indiana?
No, ma'am.
Yes, there is.
My son, for a child, yes.
Just
he
a
was.
second. So the answer is either yes or no. You
Yes,
said
ma'am.
no. So
for
there
me, no. For my son, yes.
was your son wearing a helmet?
Yes, ma'am.
You know he was
Shh,
not.
shh. No, listen to me. Shh. Don't speak.
He had a small purple bicycle helmet on
Now, you wear a helmet because
to keep him from getting his head hurt.
hurt.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
Which
just for my own interest, why wouldn't you wear a helmet to prevent you from getting hurt?
Dumb is what dumb does.
Well, that would be an answer, because that sounds sort of reckless to me.
Yes, ma'am. I wear a helmet now.
And I'm not so sure your son was wearing a helmet on the 22nd of October either, sir. So I want you to be very, very careful when I ask you this question again. Are you positive that your son was wearing a helmet on the 22nd of October?
No, ma'am, I wasn't 100% positive,
Okay.
but he normally
Just a sec.
always is wearing a helmet.
Okay. On your way home, I understand you have some sort of a chart to try to explain to me what the accident was. This is your version of the accident. So you want to step over there, Mr. Klinghoffer?
Yes, ma'am.
That would be you and your son riding, both of you, probably without helmets. And it looks, that's your version, and it looks as if...
sitting in traffic.
Just a second.
Sorry.
And it looks as if there's a lot of traffic.
Yes, ma'am.
So a lot of traffic, no helmets, you're on your way home, and go ahead.
I was just sitting in traffic here, waiting for the train to clear, and he comes out of his driveway and backs right into me.
Okay.
No horn, no regard of me being
wait,
there.
Wait, 1 second. On the other side, this is your chart.
Yes, ma'am.
On the other side of where the defendant's driveway is, which I assume is the blue car, that's his driveway, is that a street?
Yes, ma'am.
You know where I'm talking about?
Yes,
Point to where I'm talking about.
This is a street
Yes,
called...
that's a street.
Yes.
And that's a street that has cars.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So one would say you should not be in that intersection.
Well, I
Just a
didn't,
second. Just a second. One would say, even in your chart, you should not be in that intersection. You should be either have enough room in front or wait until the traffic moves, because you're stuck in the middle. So a car can't move out of...
I was actually sitting about right here.
Well, this is your chart.
Yes, ma'am.
So you indicate that that chart is not absolutely correct.
No, it's
and
not.
that your scooter was right behind the three cars.
Behind these three cars here.
But still in the intersection.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a second.
We was coming to a rolling stop as the arms were coming down, so I didn't know where I was going to stop at, so I was rolling with traffic. And the vehicle that was in front of me was also pulling a trailer, and I couldn't see around it. It was a big box trailer.
So you couldn't see what was in front of you?
No, I could not. And I got as far away from his driveway as I possibly could.
No, you weren't even thinking about his driveway, sir. Let's be square. You know, it's not a good idea to make things up as you go.
No.
You didn't even know that his driveway was there.
Yeah, I did.
You did?
I knew it was there, but I was trying to get it far enough out of the way of the intersection. I didn't think he was going to come out of his driveway and back into me, ma'am.
Well, so you were watching the other side, not the driveway?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
was
what
looking
you
at
say?
the intersection,
Yeah.
just making sure I got out of the intersection, got past the yellow line.
Okay. So he clipped the...
Rear, right by my taillight.
Yeah, back here.
Yes, ma'am.
And what happened? You can go back now.
And it literally just shoved me over.
Okay, go back. So it shoved you over. Now, when it shoved you over, did you land on one foot or did you land on the pavement?
Oh, we landed on the pavement. I tossed my son up because he was sitting in front of me. Up onto his feet.
Oh, hold on. Hold the phone.
Mode.
Hold the phone. Your son was sitting in front of you.
Yes.
Is that what he said?
He was sitting in front of me.
So your son was driving.
No, he was not driving. I was driving.
I'm trying to get this picture in my head.
I'm being a
with
protective
this little,
parent.
just a second, with this little scooter. Your son was in front of you. This is one seat. So he was sitting in front of you.
Yes, ma'am.
Your 12-year-old.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And how tall is your 12-year-old?
Probably about 5 foot, if that.
My size.
Yes.
So, like a fully grown adult. He may be not yet fully grown for a kid, but I'm a fully grown adult, and I'm 5 feet tall, and I've been that my whole life. So I'm an adult.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So your adult child is sitting in front of you. You're sitting behind him.
Yes.
Now, I want you to explain to me, hold out your arms. I want you to explain to me how your son is in front of you, you're behind him in the back part of this seat, and you're driving. I want you to explain that to me. The 12-year-old driving the motor scooter.
He was not driving.
I don't believe you.
I don't believe you either.
I don't care whether you believe me. You're not judging me. I'm judging you. So that means that if I don't believe you, that's important. If you don't believe me, that is irrelevant.
Matthew Klinghoffer claims fellow motorist Robin Major hit Matthew's scooter while Robin was pulling out of his driveway.
Go ahead.
I'm reaching around my son and driving. I've Been doing it since I was 16. I've been driving scooters since I was 16.
Hey, you may have been driving scooters when you're 16, but I've been using my common sense for 80 years. And I don't see why your son wasn't sitting behind you so you didn't have to lean over on that big, long seat in order to be maneuvering this scooter. I'm not visualizing that, Mr. Klinghoffer, so I want you to take a deep breath. Kevin, let me see Mr. Major's diagram. So I want you, your son is sitting in front on the seat. You're sitting in the raised portion behind him. I want you to put that down there.
Which sitting back there in the raised portion makes me sit up much higher than him.
Sarah, does your research indicate how long this thing is? Does it give any dimensions?
I'm sure I could find it.
Okay, so he clipped the back and you fell off?
We fell over. I stood my son back up. I got up.
So you fell over and son got up?
I got my son up. I got up. He was still pushing my vehicle. I got up to smack on the back of his window. And then he gets out and aggressively screaming at me, "Why are you smacking on my window? Why are you trying to break my window?"
Okay.
I asked him, "Why are you still proceeding to try to run over my vehicle?"
But he's not trying to run over your vehicle, sir. What kind of car did he have? He had a truck.
Chevy Blazer, 2003.
Big one. He's in a very high SUV, right? And you're in a very low scooter. Now, neither you or your son went to the hospital, is that right?
No, ma'am.
Neither you or your son had medical treatment at the scene.
My son was looked over, but that was
Just a second. Neither you had medical treatment at the scene.
No.
Neither you or your son went to a doctor.
No.
Now, do you have a photograph of what your scooter looked like after this accident? Because this is his photograph.
That's after the accident. Here's another one.
Okay, I'd like to see what your photograph looks like.
There's all of them.
Mr. Klinghoffer of the motorcycle, because Mr. Major is handing me up his photographs of what this looks like.
Here's the whole stack.
Okay. So what we're talking about is this piece right here.
That's my exhaust. And
Just a second. That's what's damaged.
That
This
and
piece.
the upper panel there.
I don't see anything damaged in the upper
On my
panel.
picture, it shows it.
I'd like to see
I bet
it.
it does. Now, on that muffler, that's rust.
That's not rust.
I might not know nothing about scooters, but I know what rust is.
Mr. Major.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know what's wrong with you. I made myself clear pleasantly to you, respectfully to you, but you certainly understood that here we don't talk to each other.
Yes, ma'am.
That you will have a turn right now. It's his turn.
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor, that wheelbase is 50 inches, so about 4 feet wheel to wheel.
Okay, so let me see. So from here to here, wheel to wheel is 4 feet. So sitting on the back here, in order to get to the handlebars.
Maybe like 3 feet.
3 feet. Hold out your arms. Nah. Okay. Now, just to complete your story, sir, Mr. Klinghoffer, this happened in October, and you said you wear a motorcycle helmet now, or a helmet now, since the accident.
Yes, ma'am.
Since this accident.
It scared me straight.
And did you or did you not have the scooter repaired?
No, I have not had
Just
it
a second.
repaired.
So the answer is no. Pay attention, Mr. Klinghoffer, from which I deduce, you're looking at your papers, from which I deduce that the motor scooter is operable. You've been using it since October, despite the, oh yes, that's what you just said.
I haven't been using it.
Who's been using it?
I got 3 others.
No.
I got 3 other scooters that I've been driving.
I don't
have
believe.
not been driving
Just
that
a
one.
second. I don't believe you, sir.
Okay.
I want you to be really careful about what you say to me. You do wear a helmet now. Now you know where I'm going, Mr. Klinghoffer. Since the accident, so does your son. There is nothing that appears to be mechanically wrong with this motor scooter in either your photographs or his. Nothing mechanical.
Estimate.
I don't care what your estimate says, sir. On my naked eye. First of all, you understand that I'm doubting.
I understand,
I'm doubting big parts of your story, Mr. Klinghoffer.
I understand, ma'am.
I doubt big parts of your story about whether or not you were wearing a helmet. I don't think your son was wearing a helmet. I think that this diagram indicates to me that you were in a place where you shouldn't have been. That's your diagram. He has his own diagram that'd probably be very different. So I am going to assume, because that's my common sense, that you and or your son have been riding this motor scooter since October and that it hasn't sat idly. I don't care what you got, because the pictures belie the fact that this motor scooter was damaged beyond being rideable. And that's if it was his fault. Okay, now we've got his picture, now we're coming to you. Is that a fair and accurate representation
Yes.
of the accident site?
No, it's not.
Yes.
Now,
how would you know? You wasn't even there. You didn't show up 20 minutes after the fact.
Excuse me.
You did not show up. She wasn't even there.
I'm going to throw you out, and you're going to lose this. I'm going to throw you out, and you're going to lose.
You called him an idiot in front of my son.
Okay, she's gone. Gone, gone, gone.
Yeah. I know why you can't afford insurance.
Gone.
We wouldn't be here today if he had insurance.
Did you understand why I threw your wife out?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what you people think this is all about. The fact that he had no, is what you say to me, he had no insurance, which is why you're here?
Yeah, we wouldn't be here right now if he had insurance, and insurance would have took care of all
Yeah,
that.
well, it's possible, Mr. Klinghoffer, that you wouldn't be here right now, and I haven't made a decision yet if you weren't driving recklessly, without helmets, with your son, who, according to you, has issues, the 12-year-old driving the motor scooter.
He was not driving.
But I don't believe you.
I don't believe you either.
I don't care whether you believe me. You're not judging me. I'm judging you. So that means that if I don't believe you, that's important. If you don't believe me, that is irrelevant. Were you driving your car uninsured?
I was moving my...
Oh, no. Be very careful what you say to me. You turned the ignition on, started to move. That's driving.
Matthew Klinghoffer is accusing fellow motorist Robin Major of hitting him and his son while Robin backed out of his driveway.
Okay. Your statement, Mr. Major, based upon this diagram, is that the defendant pulled out and was to sort of beat the traffic and was driving not in a lane, which suggests to me, sir, that you saw him.
I didn't see him.
Well, how do you know that he pulled out?
When I was backing out, the car that's adjacent there waved me out.
You mean the car
behind?
Go over there. I know what you're talking about, just so that we're clear. The car behind said you.
This car, as I'm coming out my driveway, he's saying he's waving me out.
He's waving you on to suggest that it's clear.
So I'm coming out, and I didn't see him, Your Honor.
You didn't see him?
No.
Okay. Now go back. Now, Mr. Major, we're going to get to insurance. Were you driving your car uninsured?
I wasn't driving. I was moving my...
Oh, no. Be very careful what you say to me. You put a key in the ignition. You turned the ignition on. You put the car in reverse.
Yes, ma'am.
Started to move. That's driving.
Yes, ma'am.
And driving far enough into the street so you weren't on your property.
No, my car was still in...
Oh, no, Mr. Major. Mr. Major, you said that that's a fair and accurate representation of the accident
That's
scene.
my driveway.
The back of your car is not in the driveway. The back of your car is in a public street. That's what you said.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, he was... Listen to me, Mr. Major. I'm an equal opportunity abuser. You have to understand that. So please, I'm sort of ancient, but please don't treat me as if I'm stupid.
No,
people confuse age with stupidity.
No,
that would be a huge mistake on your part.
Yes.
Huge. Unless you're suggesting he came up on your driveway, which this doesn't suggest at all. You were in a public street without insurance.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that would be an easy. Did the police respond to this accident?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a police report?
There,
ma'am.
Yes,
May I have it, please?
They gave me.
Right here.
Scuff and scratch marks were observed on the left side of vehicle 2. That's what the police officer observed. Now, what did you do after this accident, Mr. Klinghoffer?
I called the police.
Got the police. The police came, they took a report, they spoke to you. Now, you were picking your son up from school.
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you go?
I went home.
You went home with your son. Now, when you went home with your son, you were riding in front, is that correct?
We walked home. My vehicle was not rideable. My exhaust pipe was
Just a second. How did you get the motor scooter?
I pushed it.
Did you see him push the motor scooter?
I seen him push it down so far, and then he got on it.
Just a second. Would you bring in Mr. Klinghoffer's wife?
This way.
Step over next to your husband, please. Were you at home when your husband came home with your son after this accident?
He actually called me.
Just a second. I said, were you at home?
Yes, I was at home.
Who else was home with you?
My brother and my friend.
You say your husband called you and he told you about the accident?
Yes.
And what did you do?
Me and got in the car and we pulled up and I parked in the middle of the street.
Go over to that chart and show me where you pulled up.
About right here.
Okay, so you pulled up right near where the accident was?
Yes.
And where was your husband?
He was right here with Justin.
Okay, go back. And then what happened? Police come, police leave. I want you to tell me what happened next.
After the police and fire department and ambulance leave, me and Justin walked to where they told me to park my car. So me and Justin got in the car.
And your husband?
He was walking the scooter back to our house with.
And is that how he arrived at the house, walking with the motor scooter?
Yes.
Very good. Kevin, she can go out now.
Okay. This way, please.
Now, as soon as Kevin gets back, we're going to take a look at your estimate.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, so protector muffler, reasonable. Front fender, unreasonable. Just a second. You understand?
Yeah.
Okay. Radiator cover, footrest boards. No. Rear reflector is reasonable. Exhaust pipe. Okay. Now, Mr. Major.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to tell you that ordinarily I would award him half the damage because I think that he was 50% responsible for this accident. I think he was driving negligently with his son. I think his son was actually, his 12-year-old son was driving the scooter. I think that that's what happened because his story about him sitting in the rear seat hunching over his son in a 4-foot wheelbase is not something that I can conjure. And if it was true, it was still reckless. So I would actually ascribe half of his damage to him. I'm not, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if there was a lot of traffic, you are at least partially responsible for not being more cautious. You're driving in a big car. There was somebody behind you because you did, in fact, hit them. And you have to be very cautious when you're driving a big car. The reason I'm ascribing all the damage to you, sir, is because you had no insurance. And nobody belongs on the road without insurance. And there has to be a penalty when you're driving without insurance, just like when you were driving without a license. Do you require a license? Just a second. Hey! Where you live, which Sarah can check, do you need a driver's license to ride a scooter on the street?
No, you need an endorsement for a Class B scooter.
A what?
An endorsement for a Class B scooter.
Okay. Do you have that?
Yes, ma'am.
Does your son?
No.
Your son was driving. Your case is dismissed. We're finished here. Thank you very much.
My son was not driving.
This court is adjourned.
I had insurance, but I had it on my other vehicle, not on my truck. I didn't feel nothing until he was pounding on the back of my window. I did not see the scooter until after the fact. Wear your helmet when you're on a scooter and have insurance when you're back on your driveway.
You know what was interesting about that, Sarah, to me? The one thing he said, which came out sort of by accident, was that his son was in front of him. And there's no question that...
I can imagine a world in which you're very uncomfortably trying to ride around your son, but he's not a 7 or 8-year-old. You know, he's a teenage boy who's 5 feet tall, and that would be like one of us sitting in front of him. So I agree that it doesn't make the most sense. I could fathom it. However, common sense kind of kills it.
Common sense kind of kills it, and so does, we were all wearing helmets.
Yeah.
And so does, I pick him up in the motor scooter, and this guy for sure lets his 12-year-old son drive it, and there's a lot of traffic based upon what both things, and the defendant had no insurance.
Nanette Highland is suing her former neighbor, Sahara Carrillo, for vet bills after a dog attack.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case number 2042, Highland versus Carrillo.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tell me your dog's name.
Faith.
How old is Faith?
11.
How long have you had her, Miss Highland?
Since she was 5 weeks old.
When did you live next door to the defendant?
Yeah, it was across the way, but...
It's across?
Yeah, my side of the door faced her side of the door, and there was a grassy knoll in between.
Do you have a photograph of the area?
No, I don't.
Do you? I'd like to see it.
That's mine, and this is where hers would be.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is whose trailer?
Hers.
Miss Carrillo. Is there a street in between this area?
That's where hers would be. Right
Where?
there, in that area where the rocky thing, right after the grass.
Kevin, give this to the defendant.
Maybe
and have
this
her
one's
put
better.
Where the plaintiff's trailer would be.
Okay.
And where hers was.
This is where hers is, would have been right here.
Just put plaintiff and show me where yours was.
Mine is right here.
Put it down. Let me see if that makes it clear to me, Kevin. Thank you. Yours is here, plaintiff's is here, and this large grass area is a common area?
Yeah.
It's a common area because you're all the way down here. This is a relatively large space.
It's only like...
I wasn't talking to you.
Sorry.
Okay. And the incident that involved your pet, Miss Highland, happened on October 8th, 2021.
Yeah, it was actually October 9th after going back through the paperwork.
You are no longer in this trailer park.
No, it's an RV park, but yeah.
An RV park. How long were you there?
4 or 5 months. It was like mid to end of May, and this happened in October, and within 3 weeks, I got a place.
And that's your dog? That's
Yeah.
the dog that was injured that day?
Yes.
And what kind of a dog do you have?
A Vizsla mix boxer.
A Vizsla?
Vizsla,
So tell me what happened, Miss Highland, on October 9th.
I had gotten up, and I was taking my girls out to go potty.
How many of those do you have?
2. I have a puppy that's almost 2 years old, and then Faith. So I was taking my girls out to go potty, and I'd been looking to make sure that the dog was inside, and I didn't see the dog, and it was on its chain under her trailer, apparently, because when we came outside.
Was your dog on a chain?
On a leash, yeah.
Well, what kind of leash?
That's not right.
Yes.
That's not true.
Well, that's a leash.
Right.
That's a leash.
It was
She says
on-
the dog was on a chain.
No.
Do you have?
Yes, it was.
I don't have a chain.
Okay.
I don't have a chain. Never had a chain. It's been a leash.
Okay. Were you outside on October 9th at the time of this incident? Were you outside when it started?
Yes. I was outside on top of my stairs.
No, you weren't.
Okay. You're not allowed to answer her. I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Okay, so you're taking your dogs out to potty. Were they on a leash or off leash?
They were on a leash.
But she didn't have
They
them.
go outside.
Don't speak.
Okay.
I always have them on a leash whenever they go
Were
outside.
they on a leash on October 9th?
Yes.
Okay, so you were taking them out, although you did say, Ms. Highland, that you let them out in your front yard, is what you said, I believe, in your complaint. Let me see. You didn't say I took. You said I let my dogs out in the front yard to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
when I say let them out, let me clarify, okay? I'm always with my dogs.
I know that you say you were always with them.
Yeah.
That's not my question. My question to you was a simple one. Were they on leash or off leash?
Yeah.
Yes, what?
They were on their leashes.
Be careful. You took them out on leashes in the front grass.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened?
When we got down to the bottom of the steps, her dog came out from underneath the trailer and grabbed Faith.
Well, she was on a leash.
Yeah, but she grabbed her. The puppy started to go one way, and I had Faith and dropped her leash and the puppy was going, like she got out of my hand and was taken off, and her dog was under the trailer, didn't know it because I'd been watching to make sure she had been inside, but didn't see her or the dog out, and she came out of the trailer after the dog grabbed Faith.
In what location did her dog grab Faith?
Right by my trailer, right by my steps, where I had my steps. The chain was long enough for the dog to go past the tree that was right there in between the two properties. And she came out and
Your dogs
started
came right
beating-
up to my
just-
dog.
just a
You didn't have a hold of the leash.
You're not.
That's
you're not,
because the
listen to
dog
me, you're
broke
not
free.
Sorry.
You want to continue with this case, or you want to go?
No, I want to continue.
Then let's understand. We don't talk to each other. Okay. So your version of the events is that her dog was chained under her trailer. You came out with your dogs on leash. The puppy ran away. You dropped her leash. Her dog got your dog and took your dog back to her trailer.
Yeah.
At what point did she come out of the trailer?
After the second time, her dog had picked up Faith, and Faith was screaming, and I was screaming.
Okay. Miss Carrillo, have you ever had an incident with your dog before?
No.
With another dog?
No, I haven't.
That's a lie, because you...
Shh. I want you to think carefully. Have you ever had another incident with your dog and another dog?
No.
How long have you had your dog?
Since she was a puppy, 9 years, since 2013.
And this is the first time she aggressively bit another animal?
Yes.
Okay. You have information to the contrary, Miss Highland?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
I'd like you to tell me.
Okay. When I first moved in, she even told me about how her dog had killed a couple other dogs.
Okay. Tell me about that.
She just told me to make sure I was careful with my dogs because her dog has a history of attacking and aggression towards other dogs.
Well, those are conclusions. You first said that her dog killed two dogs.
She did. She told me that her dog was aggressive and that it has a history of killing other dogs and that it had already killed other dogs, and that's why she got kicked out of her last RV park.
I've never lived at another RV park. That's my first RV park ever living at.
Where did you live before?
At my mom's on Ming Avenue.
Did you ever indicate to Miss Highland that she should keep her dogs close to her?
We've never spoken prior to the incident. We never, just maybe a hi. She just had moved in. I never spoke to her.
You want to tell me your version of what happened on the 9th of October?
Yes. I was outside on top of my stairs. I was sweeping. My dog was at the bottom of the stairs. I have her tied up to the stairs. There's a ring where I clip her leash to, so she can't go far. It's just this distance while I was sweeping.
Would you hand that to me, please?
And I can hear her dogs barking while they were inside.
Would you open it up for me? Okay. What you're telling me is that this is what you tied on to under the stairs. Where did you tie it?
This part right here. And then
Where?
I have
Where?
I have to show you how I have it, put it on. Can you give it back?
Let her show me.
I'll clip it onto her harness, and then this would clip
What
onto
harness?
the bottom. My dog's harness.
Are you telling me that your dog was on a 2-foot lead?
Yes, I have her right there when I'm right there. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My neighbor can vouch to that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you did see part of this incident?
Correct.
Careful. You saw it from your trailer, from your RV?
Sitting outside my trailer, in front of my trailer.
So I want you to tell me exactly what you saw.
Nanette Highland claims her former neighbor, Sahara Carrillo, owes for vet bills after Sahara's dog attacked her chihuahua.
Tell me your name.
My name is Garrett Newhouse.
Mr. Newhouse, how long have you been the defendant's neighbor?
2, 3 years.
Did you see the dog on that gizmo?
Yes.
How far do you live from the defendant?
I'm directly behind Sarah. I'm just right behind her.
Behind hers. So you face the back or the front of her trailer?
The front of my trailer faces the back of her trailer. The door is the same direction towards the yard.
So that you don't see her front door?
Her trailer is angled so that I can see her front door.
Okay. You want to tell me your version of what happened on the 9th? You could sit down.
I was outside on top of my stairs. My dog was at the bottom. On the bottom,
this thing.
On the
Okay.
bottom, I have a hook that I clip her leash to, and she was sunbathing right there. I moved her other places, but while I was there, sweeping on top, she was right there. So then I hear her dogs inside that were barking, and then all of a sudden I hear the door open, and the dogs just come rushing. Both of her dogs. They had leashes on, but she wasn't holding the leashes. And then my dog grabbed her dog, and I yelled at my dog and whacked her in her head, and she dropped the dog, and then that's when she was on her way.
How did that happen?
What do you mean?
Your dog is on a 2-foot lead. You heard her dogs coming out. You were on top of the stairs.
Yeah.
You saw her dogs, according to you, running, and your dog is on this much. This much?
Yes.
No, actually not that much, because you made a loop.
Yeah, that's the way I do it.
Well, not a moment ago, you made it. You made a loop, so it was on about this much, and on about this much lead, your dog picked up her dog in the mouth. How many times?
Just that one time, and it's this long. You can see where the area is all dirt, where she stays on and runs around or misses in the dirt. The grass is still right there where it's nice and green, and the area that she sits in is right there, right in front of my stairs.
And so your dog grabbed her dog in the mouth while close to your trailer.
At my trailer, yeah.
At your trailer. And then you hit it on the rear end and she spit out the dog.
Yes.
And then?
And then she ran towards her and she came towards her dog.
This little dog ran towards the plaintiff. The plaintiff ran towards her. And what did you do?
She went to get her dog and I grabbed my dog.
How did you grab your dog?
I took her off her leash and put her inside. And then I went to see if her dog, is your dog okay? You should have had a hold of her leash.
Now, what did you say to her when you came out?
Is your dog okay?
Okay. Is your dog okay? And what did she say to you?
I can't remember. She was just, your dog, got my dog. I'm like, how come you didn't have the leash? They were on leashes, but she wasn't holding them. And she said because of her legs that she couldn't. And I told her, then you shouldn't have dogs if you can't take care of them.
Just a second, is that what you said to her? You shouldn't have dogs if you can't take care of them?
If you can't they can't be loose. There's a leash law, and she didn't have the leash. She had leashes on them, but she didn't have a hold of them.
I'm just asking you.
Yeah.
That's what you want me to believe you said to her.
That's what I said to her, yeah.
You shouldn't have dogs if you can't take care of them.
That's what I said, yes.
Okay. And did you see her dog injured in any way?
No.
Can I see the records from the vet, please?
Yeah. And here's even photos.
And was there a report made to either the
There was,
RV?
but
Shh! I didn't finish my question. Was there a report made to the RV park or to the police department?
Yes.
May I see that too as well?
I don't have the RV park or the police report. They could not.
Okay, but
they
could
were
not.
sending me all over.
The answer is I don't have them.
Yeah, but that's just photos from the injuries.
Now, I'd like to see the vet report, please.
This is the neurology. This is all the other vet stuff.
Don't give me a whole bunch of stuff. I'd like to see the reports and the bills from the vet. And I am correct, sir, you did not see any of this incident. Is that correct?
Only the commotion
No, just
when,
a second.
when she
I'm
smacked
asking
the
you.
dog and...
No. Stand up. Let's be very careful about your answer. Am I correct that you didn't see any of this incident?
Only after she had smacked the dog and he dropped the dog and that little commotion right there where she picked up the dog and went in the house.
You saw it from your trailer, from your RV?
Sitting outside my trailer.
So I want you to tell me exactly what you saw. Now look at me.
Her.
Who's her?
Sarah. Her picking up her dog and going back to her house.
Where was she when she picked up her dog? No, I tell you what you're going to do. You're going to show me right here.
Like halfway between her house and my house. Her house.
Put a mark where you saw her, where she picked up her dog. Okay, may I have that, please?
Struck somewhere. Like a couple feet away.
So she picked up her dog right near Miss Carrillo's RV.
trailer, yes.
And where was Miss Carrillo?
She took the dog and let it up the stairs, put it in the house, and shut the door, and came back out to see.
And at that time, were you listening to what the two women were saying to each other?
Not really.
Were they yelling at each other, or were they calm?
There was yelling.
So if they were yelling, could you hear what the yelling was?
I didn't know either one of them at that time really that well. I think I went back in the house at that point. Just whatever.
Thank you. You've been most helpful. Okay, you have the report for me from the 9th of October?
Yeah.
I'd like to see it. Okay, so there was one set of stitches that the dog had.
That was her first surgery.
Okay, let me see the second time she was there.
This is the stuff for that one. And that's why.
Well, this was the day afterwards, and when did she go back?
It was June 30th because she was having grand mal seizures, and they had to keep her because they had to start her on phenobarbital because of the eye injuries and the head injuries.
Well, it doesn't really talk about those
That's
injuries.
in the pictures. It shows where her head was punctured.
I see one wound, and I don't see a photograph.
On the picture itself, if you see her head, there's a mark right here on her head by her eye. That was a puncture wound that they had to clean out.
Okay. Now, the defendant says both dogs had a leash on, but that the leashes weren't attached to your hand. Is that correct?
Honestly, I don't remember because most of the time when I'm coming down the steps, I have their leash in hand, and sometimes, like going down the steps, I lose the leash or I drop it and they are at the bottom of the steps waiting for me because they know it takes me a minute to get down the steps.
Okay. If you're standing on your steps sweeping, you see her dogs running across, then you jump down from the step and you grabbed your dog.
Didn't she say that she wasn't sure if she was holding the leash? Her
Absolutely.
Dog came
I
to my dog.
don't answer your questions.
Nanette Highland says her former neighbor, Sahara Carrillo, is responsible for her Chihuahua's vet bills. Sahara claims her dog was tied up and Nanette's dog ran onto her property.
At any time, did Faith run across the lawn?
No, she was right by the steps because the tree is right there. It was like in between our spaces isn't even as big as this, in between here and your front of the bench. And literally, she was grabbed right by my steps.
Was any report made by you to any animal control?
I'd called 911 and reported it, and they can't find the report, but it was done over the phone, and I waited for him to come out for a week, and I kept calling him. But I did it over the phone with them.
Did you ascertain from the defendant whether her dog was up to date in rabies shots?
I didn't ask any questions afterwards. I was just trying to make sure and find out what was going on with her.
Did anyone from the RV park come and discuss the incident with you?
They just asked me what
Just
happened.
a second. So the answer is yes. Do you have any sort of documentation of that discussion that they had with you?
There was no documentation.
Do you remember the name of the person that you spoke to?
Yes.
Are you still at the RV park?
Yes.
Did you tell the RV park that there was a witness to this event?
No.
Well, there were two different versions of the event. One says that your dog came and attacked hers, and you say that her Chihuahua came and was aggressive towards your dog. But you have allegedly an independent witness who saw part or most of it, who you brought to court today. I assume that the plaintiff communicated to the RV park that your dog was at fault, correct?
Yes.
And you say your dog was not at fault. Is there any reason why you didn't tell the RV park that there was a witness?
Oh, because I didn't know yet.
When did you find out that he had seen anything of the event?
Maybe like 3 weeks after.
Tell me about that. How did you find out that he had seen any part of it?
Because I was talking to him about what was going on, that she was going to take me to court, and then he said that he had seen.
So now you were talking to your neighbor.
Right.
Which meant that you must have been at least somewhat friendly towards him.
At that time, yes.
At the time of the incident on the 9th of October.
We didn't know each other that well.
But you had lived there for a long time. How long did you live there?
Since July 20.
And how long has he been living there? How long have you been living there?
A long time, 20 years.
Long time, 20 years. So my question is, what prompted you 3 weeks later to have a discussion with him?
Because I started to get to know him by then. I worked. I worked at that time. I worked a lot. You know, so I started to conversate with my neighbor. That's.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How much were your vet bills?
At this point, it's over $10,000.
Have they been paid?
Most of them.
Okay. I'd like to see the bills, the last bill.
And can I say something about what she said? First of all, she was in there way before I was. She had already been there over a year. And second of all, the thing is she couldn't have said anything 3 weeks after, because it wasn't after until my leg recovered from having to have emergency surgery from falling right after the incident happened that I even decided to file court papers. So the court papers weren't even filed
until when?
Until June.
I didn't say they were filed.
You said 3 weeks after, but anyways, so like all this
I see the bills,
back in October, and I literally couldn't get to the courthouse to be able to drive to the courthouse.
How much do you owe the vet?
What I've already paid is over $2,000, or right around $2,000 in cash that I've paid. But to get her MRI, I need to pay $3,000.
There is no nexus that can be drawn between the seizures that she's having now, other than other than the vet saying that it's possible that it can be caused by trauma.
Yeah.
Other than that, that's the only thing I saw there. There was not a full report that said the trauma that she had 6 months before was the basis for these seizures that she's having. Seizures. She's 11 years old.
Seizures right after the attack.
Ms. Highland, you have to understand that you need an expert witness that you don't have to demonstrate that the seizures that your dog is currently having is a direct result of this dog attack.
Right.
Do you understand? Faith is 11 years old, and it's possible. Just a second. It's possible that it comes from that. It's possible it comes from something else. I don't deal in possibilities. Right. All I want to know is what vet bills you paid for October 9th and October 10th.
The actual total was $1,526.62 without her medicine being involved.
Okay, well, that's a reasonable vet bill for those 2 dates. She did have 2 different surgeries. And the medications that you're talking about were also included in that $1,526, other than for the seizures that you want me to draw a connection with I'm not. And nothing more is owed to the vet for those 2 days, October 9th and 10th. Okay. Ms. Carrillo, I have to make a determination as to whether or not I believe the story that her 2 little dogs rushed up to your dog that was being chained to a step on a very, very short lead with you standing right there, and whether or not I believe that you stood there while your dog that was on a very short lead, that has never had any problems with aggression before, picked up her dog twice, because once she had puncture wounds in the stomach and once she had puncture wounds around the head. And I don't believe you. Quite frankly, I don't believe you. Okay. And I think you're responsible for her vet bills. I think you would have indicated.
Didn't she say that she didn't have the leash, that she wasn't sure if she was holding the leash? Her
absolutely.
Dog
I don't answer your questions. If you're standing on your step sweeping, and your dog is now chained, and you see her dog's running across, then you jump down from the step and you grab your dog. That's what you do. You have a very big dog that you keep on a very short, according to you, chain, and there's a reason for that. So if you're standing with it, this is not a question and answer. You're responsible for our vet bills. I believe her. $1,526. Judgment for the plaintiff. We're finished. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
They behave like even in the courtroom.
She did get bitten by my dog, but
they listen. Like, if I start counting to 3 with them,
it was about her not having them on the leash and having control of her dogs.
They go and do what they're told.
About her dog getting hurt. I mean, I went to see if it was okay.
Because that's how she is.
That if my dog bites another dog, I'm gonna have to pay.
So one thing I found interesting about that defendant's testimony was that when you were in your line of questioning about whether or not her dog had ever been in another fight or with any other dog, any interaction, she said no. I thought I remembered when I was reading her answer, she stated that she had a mutual understanding with the plaintiff that when her larger dog was outside, the plaintiff's dogs would be kept inside. Why would you need to have that sort of mutual understanding unless you knew that your larger dog had a propensity for violence towards other dogs?
That's true. I forgot. Now that you mentioned it, I remember that I read about this mutual agreement. I wouldn't think that she was afraid that the Chihuahua would attack her dog.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Jessica Crane for personal items and money from a GoFundMe fundraiser.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2119, Crane versus Crane.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, Miss Crane, this is a very sad case. This is your daughter.
Yes, it is.
And I don't know how many children that you have, but I know that you had a son who was in medical school, who was, how old, 25 years old?
30.
30. Sounds as if he was a popular young man. He was in an outing with friends, and sadly, he drowned.
Yes, he did.
And that happened, just a second, and that happened when?
That happened July 29th of this year.
This is what the case is about. His friends, in his memory, started a GoFundMe page.
Correct.
And there is approximately $40,000 in that GoFundMe page.
There was, yes.
I said approximately.
Yes.
There was. And your daughter is, for want of a better word, in charge of that Facebook page GoFundMe proceeds.
Correct.
And it is your claim that as the next of kin, because he died without a will, you are entitled to some or all of that Facebook page.
It doesn't even matter about the GoFundMe funds. I mean, that would be nice in a perfect world, but my daughter took everything. From the day my son passed, when they found his body at the river, the coroner gave her the keys to his truck, and she went to his apartment and emptied it. So I didn't get my chance to be Josh's mom for the last time. I didn't get to empty his apartment.
I can't cure that, madam.
No.
I can't cure that.
No.
And you can't put any sort of a value on anything that your daughter might have taken from that apartment because you don't know what was there.
Correct.
So I can't help you with that. In a perfect world, maybe she would have gone with you to the apartment, but she didn't.
Correct.
Based upon what I read, you were not there during the search for your son or the discovery of his body. Is that correct?
I was at home.
Okay. And your daughter was there?
Yes, she was.
And I assume that you were close to your brother?
Absolutely close to my brother.
Just curious, what prevented you? You were notified that your son was missing. What prevented you from going there?
My daughter was at the house the day Josh went missing, and we had my car torn apart. She left after they called her, and I definitely would have hitched a ride, but I didn't have a vehicle.
Your Honor, I got...
Just a second. Did you say she was at your house?
Yes, she was.
Well, then why didn't you go with her?
They didn't call till after she had left, apparently, and rather than come back and get me...
You mean she left to go someplace else?
She left to go home. Yeah, we were working on my car. She left to go home, and she got a call from Search and Rescue. I hadn't been answering my phone.
Oh, well, that's a different story. You hadn't been answering your phone. It wasn't as if nobody called you.
No, she didn't call.
It wasn't as if nobody called you. Did somebody call you?
Right, from Search and Rescue, yes.
Somebody called you?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Crane, this is your problem. If your son passed away without a will, and I'm sure that somebody else, maybe a professional has told you that, a legal professional has told you that, if your son passed away without a will, depending upon the laws in your jurisdiction, you, as his parent, might be construed as next of kin, and any property that he owned at the time of his death would transfer to you.
Right, correct, yes.
He didn't own the GoFundMe page at the time he died.
No, he did not.
So you don't get it.
Okay.
Any part of it.
Okay.
Your Honor, she already received funds from the GoFundMe as well.
Just a second. The people that set up the GoFundMe page, I assume, were classmates of your brother's?
Yes, they were his other fourth-year medical students that had reached out to me and asked if they could...
Don't tell me what they asked you. They set up a GoFundMe page. Do you have the paperwork for the GoFundMe page? I'd like to see it. Okay, so they raised $39,287.
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything that is in writing that makes you either the beneficiary of?
The organizer of
Would you do me a favor, look it up?
Underneath the photo.
It does say that I am the beneficiary listed on there.
Thank you. You're Jessica.
I am.
Okay. Is organizing this fundraiser on behalf of Jessica Crane. That's her.
That has changed. Initially, it was for Joshua Crane, and with the legal
Just show me.
It's never been for...
Show me, just a second. Mrs. Crane.
Yes.
It wouldn't make any difference, but I'm willing to look at something that originally it was on behalf of somebody else.
The reason I'm here today is not because of the GoFundMe.
Your Honor, that's exactly why she's
Just-
here. It's the
just a
money.
sec-
It's always been about the money.
All right, how are you going to pay the note on a $14,000 truck?
I plan on returning to work. This incident has taken my job, believe it or not.
Actually, I don't believe it.
Your Honor, I work
Just
3 jobs.
Just a second. Actually, I don't believe it.
And later today,
What kind of narcotics were found inside the vehicle?
It's alleged that it was a...
No, it's not alleged. This is a police report. I'm asking you, what kind of narcotics were found in your car?
Carol Crane claims her daughter, Jessica Crane, is wrongfully keeping her son's property and money from his GoFundMe fundraiser.
This is your complaint. I'm suing the defendant, Jessica Crane, in the amount of $10,000 for my portion of my deceased son's GoFundMe account and personal items, including my son's guitars and his vehicle.
Correct.
Okay. Now you're not looking for his GoFundMe account.
I never really was because I never knew the law on GoFundMe. I tried to find out and speak to someone about it and get legal advice, and I could never find anyone.
Well, it's very easy. He didn't own this property while he was alive, so you have no title to it. If they said that they're starting a GoFundMe page in the name of your son to be for the benefit of animal rescue, you wouldn't have any control over that.
No, it was meant for his funeral costs.
Just a second.
Which I also paid
It says,
for,
just
Your
a
Honor.
second, on behalf of Jessica Crane.
Right.
On behalf of Jessica Crane, just for my own curiosity, I'd like to know, your son was buried at some point?
He was cremated.
He was cremated.
And I have the receipts. I paid for his obituary, his cremation.
Okay, so what I'm asking you is, there were no serious funeral costs.
I got everything donated on my funeral.
That's not true as
Just a second. I'm asking you, Mrs. Crane, did you pay anything for your son's funeral?
No.
Okay, that's all. So it's not as if you had any outlay of money for this. You know what I find sort of troublesome? I find troublesome that his friends, because that sometimes happens, it's human nature, you feel so badly about something, you want to do something, and probably the easiest thing to do is to raise money. And the easiest thing for probably these people who are in their 20s and 30s is to start a GoFundMe page. I mean, it just would seem to me if they wanted to do a scholarship for him at the school, if they wanted to do something else, this is for those people out there who are watching, who are GoFundMe people. I've seen some of the more ridiculous ones, you know, and there are good-natured people out there who see these things and will donate $5 and $10. Oh, my goodness, they need funeral costs. Well, in this case, there were no issues, and almost all this money, $40,000, is left. What are you going to do with it?
So there's a couple things that I planned on doing with it. It's why the money has been sitting in account.
I just want the people who donated this money to know what you're going to do with it. It's not for you to buy anything for yourself.
Your Honor.
That would be ridiculous. That's not what was in their minds. So I want to know who I'm dealing with.
Your Honor, after all of Josh's expenses were paid for, which I paid for using that money. I am very close with the dean at UC Davis, who is a good friend of my brother's as well, and they have talked about setting up a scholarship fund for my brother, and I was going to donate a portion of that money back if UC Davis decides to set that up on his behalf. And then I also wanted to set up scholarship funds for my sons, who my brother was very close with.
So what you're telling me is you're going to give a little to UC Davis for a scholarship in his name, and you're going to use some for your two sons for their education.
Absolutely.
Well, that's really not what it was intended to do. I'm just telling you, it was not what it was intended to do.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's how GoFundMes are set up. People can set them up for an intended purpose, and they're used for anything.
But I'm just telling the people out there, before you spend money on a GoFundMe page, make sure it's going to go to a place where you want it to go and for the intended purpose you want it, which is to somehow celebrate the life of this young man that was cut short so tragically. And it would seem to me, Miss Crane, you don't have to do anything because they made you the beneficiary of this money. But it would seem to me that a stand-up person would take whatever is left of that and create a scholarship in his name at UC Davis, which is where he went to school. I can't order you to do that, but I'm just telling you, and everybody else out there, make sure if you have a good heart and a good spirit, you know where your money is going. Okay, so you're not entitled to any of the money. Now, did you take your brother's guitars?
I cleared out my brother's entire...
Just a second.
Yes, Your Honor.
Just answer.
Yes, Your
Answer
Honor.
the question. And how many guitars did you take?
3.
Where are they?
They're at my house.
Now, I don't have to do this. Would you like one of your son's guitars?
Yes, very
Would you
much
like
so.
one of your son's guitars? Do you have any of your son's guitars?
None.
Your Honor, my mom has a long history of substance abuse. She's bought gifts for me in the past, and she's pawned them off. And I would like to keep them in my family, so that's where they stay. So that's why I have possession of them, because I don't want them going to a pawn shop.
I was told I could visit one of my son's guitars at her home.
Just a second, do you play guitar?
No. I just want it because it's my son's, and
Well,
I bought 3 of his guitars for him.
None of these guitars were purchased by her. They're very expensive guitars. My brother purchased
I can't
every one
order
of
her to
these
do
guitars.
anything. I'm just asking her whether she would give you one of the guitars. And she said no. The next thing we have here is a vehicle. Now, tell me about the vehicle.
So Josh didn't have a lot. He was a fourth-year medical student. He has a truck, a Toyota, a 2019 Toyota Tacoma, that he still owes about $14,000 on. I have that here, $13,841.76 on. And at the time, his truck was at the boat launch where they found him. So when I met with the sheriffs, they gave me possession of the keys. They found his keys on his body, and they gave me his keys. So we brought the truck up to where we live in Northern California, took the truck up there, and it's been kept in storage until this is all sorted out. I personally wanted to keep the truck. I have the means to finance the truck in my name. I have the means to make a payment. She does not have the means to make a payment. She doesn't have a job. She doesn't have a driver's license. She can't provide insurance for it. I mean, she has driving...
That's not particularly relevant. There's $14,000 left on it. Are you employed?
I was until
Just to say, the answer is either yes or no. Are you employed?
No.
All right, how are you going to pay the note on a $14,000 truck?
I plan on returning to work. This incident has taken my job, believe it or not.
Actually, I don't believe it.
Your Honor, I work 3
Just
jobs.
a second. Actually, I don't believe it.
Okay.
So the answer is, if you can't afford to make the payments on this truck, and the only thing that's going to happen is it's going to be repossessed by the bank. Have you been making payments on the truck?
I have not made a payment.
Who is the finance company?
Credit union.
Where is the truck currently stored? Give me the address.
I don't have an exact address.
And later today.
You don't understand something, sir. Even though she was high on drugs and passed out in her car and you were not at fault, it's not windfall day. That's ridiculous. And I'm not stupid.
Carol Crane claims her daughter, Jessica Crane, is wrongfully keeping her son's property and money from his GoFundMe fundraiser.
I want to see the paperwork on the loan. Okay, Sarah, When we finish with this case, call credit union, advise them who has the truck, let them go repossess the truck. We're finished here. Your case is dismissed.
This court is adjourned.
I had an addiction problem, and she's just angry. She's angry at me, and I've tried to make amends. I've tried to get this better, and she won't have it. My daughter got away with taking absolutely everything, and she wasn't entitled to it.
I think that if there's any lesson to be taken away, aside from the fact that you're not supposed to fight, you know, when you lose somebody so young and so vital, the one innocent party is the credit union who loaned him the money to buy the truck. She's been hiding the truck now for 5 months, hasn't made a payment on it. The right thing to do is for her to turn that truck into the credit union, because I can't control that, except that I can advise the credit union where she is, who she is, that she has possession of the truck, and they should go and repossess it. Anyway, it's all very sad. Before you donate money to a GoFundMe page, make sure you know where the money is going. I think that that's the takeaway from this.
Case 2161, Shaheen versus Larry. All parties, please step forward.
Jamal Shaheen is suing his neighbor, Sabrina Larry, for car damage after Sabrina hit his vehicle and a house.
Mr. Shaheen, tell me where you live.
I live in Moorhead, Minnesota.
And on September 8th of this year, you parked your relatively new car that, according to you, you got a week before.
No, Your Honor.
I had just purchased a Sequoia a week before.
No, actually, it's not. It's not the new car. I mean, it's a used car, but I purchased it maybe a year before that, not exactly a week.
Okay. So it's not a new car, and you didn't purchase it a week before?
No.
But you parked it in front of your house. Do you have a photograph of the car?
I do.
I'd like to see it. And it is your claim that the defendant, Miss Larry, while under some sort of influence of some sort of substance, was driving her car, had an accident, hit your car, and caused it to move 25 feet, and it was damaged.
Yes.
And the damage to the car was the rear bumper.
Yep.
Not yep. Yes is the answer.
Yes.
Yes is the answer. Okay. Miss Larry, what time did you have your accident?
9 or 10 a.m.
On the 8th?
Yes.
Where were you coming from?
The grocery store.
Where were you going?
Home.
What kind of drugs had you taken?
I was taking Benadryl, prescription medication. That's all I had. That's what I took. And
Can I see the police report? You remember hitting his car?
No.
You remember the police coming to where your car stopped?
No, I don't remember the police coming.
Well, did the police come?
They did, yes.
And you don't remember that?
I don't remember that.
Were you taken to a hospital?
I was.
Do you have the discharge notes from the hospital?
I do.
I'd like to see it. What kind of narcotics were found inside the vehicle?
It's alleged that it was a...
No, it's not alleged. This is a police report. I'm asking you. What kind of narcotics were found in your car?
They said that they found a round blue pill that had an M30 on it. That's what it stated.
Sarah, do me a favor.
Sure.
Look up under illegal drugs, M30.
So M30s imitate oxycodone obtained from a pharmacy, but when sold on the streets, the pills routinely contain fentanyl.
Look up this name, Percocet. You smoke Percocet? How do you smoke Percocet? That's the only thing you remembered. You didn't remember the accident. Patient remembers smoking Percocet pill just prior to allegedly passing out and crashing her vehicle. That's what they say from your doctor.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The history is provided by the patient. The history is limited by condition of the patient. History is limited because the patient does not remember the actual automobile accident. Remembers smoking Percocet pill just prior to allegedly passing out and crashing her vehicle. You think the doctor made that up? And they just so happened to have found this blue pill in your console in your car?
That's what they are saying.
Okay. You actually know you could have killed yourself. Yeah. Okay. And you don't remember anything about it because that's what you told them. You don't remember anything about anything after you smoked the little blue pill, which is what they said. So your car was moved. That's the damage to your car.
Yep.
So can I see the estimate for the damage, please?
I think
You gave it to me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Have you had the car fixed?
Just the back tail light that I had to put it on. I was trying to fix it, but don't have any money to do it.
Sarah, look up, please, would you?
I'm looking it up right now.
Oh, great. Thank you. Oh, it's a 21-year-old car. It's got 226,000 miles on it. How much did you pay for it, sir?
I paid 10.
We're not going to spend $7 to fix it.
But that's how much it costs.
You find somebody to do it less.
Well, now I am without a car.
You're not without a car, sir. You put on the taillight so that you could drive it. This car is not drivable.
That car was dragged. That back axle, it shakes. I can drive it
Between
in a
$2,000 and $5,000.
Between $2,000 and $5,000. You paid too much for the car, sir. You don't understand something, sir. Even though she was high on drugs and passed out in her car and you were not at fault, it's not windfall day. If you can buy the car for $2,000, buy an old 22-year-old car for $2,000. She's not paying you $7,000 to fix a $2,000 car. That's ridiculous. And I'm not stupid. Do we understand each other? Now, between
$2,500 and $5,000 based off of a 250,000 mile 2002 Toyota.
So you have to find somebody who's going to fix your car for $3,000, sir. That's $1,000 more than you could buy it for. We're done here. Judgment for the plaintiff.
This court is adjourned.
I would remember if I hit a car, and I didn't.
She ran into my car, run into a garage.
I know exactly what I took, and it definitely wasn't narcotics.
That area that I was living in, it's a really bad area. A lot of drugs are going on over there.
I'm very, very lucky. I'm very blessed. Like she said, I could be dead.
Just the audacity of some plaintiffs to come in here with an almost 22-year-old car with 275,000 miles on it. And I looked it up, and I even priced it on the positive end, the private party value, not a trade-in, and so forth. $7,000 he was comfortable asking the court for a car that's not even worth $7,000.
Yeah, he'll buy.
For a back panel.
Buy a new one. He was lying when I said, how much did you pay for the car? $10,000. That's ridiculous. And he just bought it, he said, a year ago. In the papers,
Yeah,
he said he
I
bought
saw
it a
that.
week before. So